What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto's shadow clone gained a mind of its own and became his greatest rival? If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments, and also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creation. Earlier that day Naruto was practicing his ninja skills on a deserted training ground. He wasn't practicing his normal skills. No, he was practicing something no one would believe and powerful, with a great teacher with him. Don't bother looking around, there's no one here besides Naruto. But his teacher was still there, helping Naruto the whole way. His teacher was none other than the great Kyuubi no Kitsune, the Nine-Tails Fox. No one knew that Naruto and Kyuubi actually had a truce with each other and were getting along. Naruto would share his body equally with the Kyuubi, and Kyuubi wouldn't be locked up in his cage and have some freedom. There was no constant battle between the two. Kyuubi even told Naruto he was sorry and didn't mean to attack the village. Although yes, he wasn't the most peaceful demon, he didn't mean to do what he did 16 years ago. It was a combination with Madara Uchiha and many years being locked away in a cage too small for his large body, eating his chakra, that drove him into insanity. After being suddenly released and his power returning to him in an instant, it overloaded him and he attacked. Naruto sensed the truth from the great demon fox and felt sympathy for him. So he struck up a deal with the fox, which Kyuubi agreed to. Naruto would let the demon out from time to time, making a shadow clone for Kyuubi to inhabit on his own, and Kyuubi wouldn't attack anyone and teach the blonde some techniques including both ninja and demonic. And so their wonderful, though odd relationship began. Kyuubi suggested to Naruto to not reveal to anyone the boy's true self. I mean, come on, who would is that stupid and would ever wear that amount of orange? It was all a ploy because everyone thought Naruto was already demon, so if they thought he was more powerful than what he shows, they would kill him without hesitation. So he plays the dumb card. Naruto nodded in understanding. He knew how cruel the villagers were. He was glad he was able to make friends who actually like him, but even then he never revealed who he was. He was afraid of losing the few people he could trust and love. He couldn't bear losing them. He doesn't know what he would do. But we are getting sidetracked. Anyways, today Kyuubi was teach Naruto a demonic power which allows him to tap into Kyuubi's own demon chakra and give him the ability to hear like a fox and to use his tails, up to the 8th one. He instructed Naruto what to do and they practiced without using any chakra until the fox host got it right. He got the technique down and now it was time for the real deal. He did the sign and tapped into the fox's chakra, but something happened and he felt pain throughout his body. He vaguely heard Kyuubi yelled out Naruto's name before blacking out. When he woke, the first thing he noticed was that Kyuubi was nowhere to be seen. He was inhabiting a shadow clone's body. The second thing he noticed was that everything around him seemed bigger and sharper. He never had seen the world like this. He was able to hear a bird flapping its wings from up high in the sky. He could smell all the different scents around him, the grass, the trees, the animals, everything, and he could see as far as 3 miles away. It was amazing. Wow, Kyuubi, this is awesome. He boy yelled out. He got up to explore more and see what else he could do, but as soon as he stood up and started walking he fell to the ground. Huh? What the? He said and tried again, but with the same result. Why can't I walk? He looked at his legs to see maybe he was tripping on something or his pants caught on something and gasped. His eyes widened and he yelled out a yowl. His legs weren't there. Well, they were, but not the same human legs. They looked like an animal leg, or rather paws. He went to cover his eyes, hoping it was just his eyes playing a trick, but gasped again when he said his hands were paws and furry. He yelped and looked around for something he could use to see himself. With some effort he was able to walk to a nearby river and looked at his reflect. He gasped yet again when he saw that it wasn't his normal face staring back at him but the face of a fox. After moving and playing with the reflection, he finally accepted that he was the fox and wondered how the hell did this happen. Kyuubi, you there? What's going on? Naruto said to his inner head. He was in his mindscape, which wasn't the normal sewers and giant cage but a nice green field with flowers blooming. A giant solid tree as high as you could see, blue sky. The wind blow giving a slightly breeze through the land and a waterfall with water that seemed to be crystal. He looked around and saw a figure sitting under the tree. He ran to the figure, yelling out, Kyuubi. The figure was a good 6 feet 3 when standing. It was obviously a male looking about late 20s, lean built with muscles. He had orangish red hair with a pair of red fox ears with black tips. He wore a red, black and white kimono and had 9 red, black-tipped tails wrapped around him. His ears twitched when he heard his name and opened his eyes, which revealed red eyes. He looked at the person he called his name and saw Naruto. "Naruto, what happened?" he asked, seemingly confused as well. "You tell me, I was doing the jutsu and blackout. I woke up to find myself a fucking fox," Naruto yelled. "What?" he asked. Naruto looked perfectly normal, but this was also Naruto's mind, so whatever Naruto sees himself is what is portrayed. So Naruto looked like himself but with added fox ears and tail. It was how Naruto saw himself, a mix between the fox and his human self. "Naruto, you look fine." "No, look," the blonde said, and a window opened where they both can see outside the mind and into reality. Kyuubi was able to see what Naruto was talking about and see he really was a full fox. "What happened? I thought this was supposed to heighten my senses, not turn me into a fox," Naruto said. He saw that Kyuubi didn't say anything. Kyuubi?" Naruto was suddenly attacked by Kyuubi, who was hugging him and snuggled the young blonde. "You're so adorable," he squealed in a very un-Kyuubi-like. Naruto struggled in the older fox's arms but soon gave up. After a bit, Kyuubi let Naruto go. "Sorry, you were just so cute," he said. Naruto blushed. "Not cute," he mumbled under his breath, but Kyuubi heard and smirked. "So anyway, why am I like this?" Kyuubi thought about it. "It could be that your normal human Charka had a reaction to my own Charka and the two fought each other. My Charka, being more powerful, won the battle but had consequence from the fight and your body ending up like that." Naruto nodded. "So anyway, I can change back?" He hoped there was a way to change back. He didn't want to be a fox forever. "Nope, sorry, I have no idea," Kyuubi said. Naruto deadpanned. What do you mean you have no idea how to change me back?" Naruto screamed. Kyuubi covered his ears. "Geez, brat, learn not to yell so loud. As I said, I'm not sure how to change you back. But we will figure it out, and who knows, maybe it will wear off. By the meantime, I suggest not going back to the village. I don't think they will be kind to you since you look like a fox," Kyuubi warned. "No shit, Kyuubi." Naruto pouted. "But where am I going to stay until then?" "Beats me, kid, but you might want to pay attention on what's going on in the world. See ya." Suddenly Naruto was pulled away from his mind and back into the real world. End of flashback. "I'm a clam." He cursed Kyuubi for not being much help and walked around aimlessly. He was thinking of ways he might be able to change back. He was far away from the village since he knew the villagers hated fox since the Kyuubi incident. They killed every fox surrounding the village and any survivors stayed clear of the village. It wouldn't be the best idea to go back to the village looking the way he does. He wasn't paying attention to where he was going and walked into a bear trap. It snapped his leg, trapping his leg and prevented him from moving. He cried and mused pitifully at the pain and tried to pull it out, but it hurt more when he moved, so he stopped. He didn't know what to do but stay there and cry, hoping someone nice would save him. Time passed and he eventually passed out from stress and exhaustion. He was sleeping when he felt the pressure around his leg is released. He groggily opened his eyes and felt and saw his leg was free from the trap. He looked up at who was his saver, but the sun behind him blocked out most of the person's looks. He could see orangish spiky hair. But he could tell it was a man by their build, and he smelled of rain, fresh grass and a hint of mint. "Don't worry, little one, I'll protect you," a soft but deep voice said. It calmed the fox and Naruto felt safe in the man's arms. He nuzzled into the other's chest and fell back to sleep. Jugo was a kind boy. He didn't want to hurt others, but sometimes he would have fits of rage, and when he realizes what he has done, it's too late. He even remembered during on fit of rage, he transformed into this monster creature and destroyed an entire village. He shuddered at the idea. These rage moments was the reason why he joined Orochimaru. He thought the snake-like man could cure him of his fits. But even with the years that had gone by, his fits were still there. He has gotten better at controlling his anger, but it wasn't totally cured. Luckily, he has killed anyone. Kimimaro was able to help him with that. He was able to do what no other could do and calm the orange-headed boy. Especially when he found out that Orochimaru was using his DNA of transforming and giving it to people. He was happy that Orochimaru was dead and that he was with Sasuke, Karen and Suigetsu. They knew what he was and didn't care, just that he was a powerful shinobi and can help achieve Sasuke's goal. He admits he does get in fights with Suigetsu well arguments, but it's really nothing. Usually he ends up ignoring the water user, which makes Suigetsu angry as hell. He was walking around in a forest. He was tired of hearing Suigetsu complaining and Karen gushing over Sasuke. He didn't mind them or anything, but sometimes it gets too much. It doesn't help that where they are staying at was one of Orochimaru's old hideout and it was underground. Jugo was a sort of free spirit where he loved nature and animals. He never told anyone, but he could understand and talk to animals and they were his friends. Mostly the birds would come and see him when he's out in the open because they can easily get away if something happens while others could not. Right now he had 3 blue birds on his shoulders, tweeting away as Jugo listened and responded. They were talking about how the forest seemed unusually quiet this time of day and Jugo had to agree. He knew there were tons of animals around, so it was weird to not hear many. Another bird came soaring from the fly and down to Jugo. It flapped in front of him, making the orange-haired boy stop. "What is it?" he asked the bird, seeing the distress. It was chirping rapidly, too fast for Jugo to understand. He caught the bird and pets it softly with one finger. "Calm down. Now tell me slowly." It took a few seconds, but the bird calmed down and told him. "There's a little fox stuck in a bear trap. You have to save it before he dies," the bird said. "A fox? Yes, you must hurry to save it. If you don't, it will die." "Why is it so important to hurry?" "The human village nearby don't like foxes. They killed every single one that was in their area. This fox must have accidentally went in their territory. Please save it. It's just a kid, a child." Jugo nodded. "I'll ask more about why they kill foxes later. For now I will save it." He followed the birds to where the fox was. He was furious, not enough to transform, that people would just exterminate a species. He will have to hear why they did so, but even then he doubts it was a good enough reason. He understood that people must kill some animals to eat and live, but not an entire species in one area. It wasn't long before he found the fox in the bear trap. The fox was a beautiful gold-yellow color with white-tipped ears and tail. Its right leg was caught in the trap and was bleeding from where the teeth had dug in. He rushed to the fox and traps and pried it open. He picked the little kitsune up and saw it moved and open its eyes. They were the most beautiful shade of blue he has ever seen, like the deep sea and sky. This fox could easily put those to shame. "Don't worry, little one, I'll protect you," he said softly, not wanting to startle the fox. It understood him and fell asleep, nuzzling his chest. He smiled softly, then looked at the leg. It was still bleeding but not life-threatening. He will have to fix it when he gets back to the hideout. He started walking back. The birds flew next to him. "Thank you for helping me," he said to them. He was glad to get there in time before anyone or anything got to the fox. He was too innocent and cute looking to be killed. The birds nodded and flew off. Using his shinobi speed, he was able to get to the hideout in 30 minutes. There were no guards or anything around because 1, the place was hidden, and 2, everyone can detect Charka, so they knew it wasn't an intruder. The hideout was a ruin of some kind of building or something. Jugo wasn't sure. It was made of stones and was a structure of some kind of building. He walked to a shrine with a Buddha sitting. He placed his hand on the statue's head and lifted it, as the head went back to reveal a seal underneath. He bit his thumb and pressed the blood on the seal. It soaked in the blood and the ground began to rumble. Jugo stepped back and watched as the ground opened to an underground tunnel. He walked down the stairs, and once he stepped off the last step, the entrance disappeared, leaving Jugo and the fox in darkness of the barely lit tunnel. He walked down the tunnel, that had so many twists and turns and hidden traps. Luckily Jugo knew all these and knew where to go. He detects all the chakras around and found the one he was looking for, Karen. She was their medic and could help clean and wrap the kitsune's leg. Because of the kid being so small and strength of the bear trap, Jugo has no doubt that the fox's leg is broken. It will need to be reset and mended. He walked to Karen, whose chakra was also with Sasuke's and Suigetsu. He didn't want to reveal all of his teammates his newfound guest, but he had no choice. He got to them in no time. It was a training area and Sasuke was training with Suigetsu while Karen seemed to be just ogling Sasuke's shirtless body. Jugo rolled his eyes and walked closer to the group. They instantly stopped feeling Jugo's chakra. "Hey Jugo!" Suigetsu yelled out. I thought you were out doing your whole talking to the animal thing. Why are you back so early? I ran into something. He trailed off and looked at the fox in his arms. Everyone looked at the bundle of golden fur. Suigetsu looked at the animal, noticing it was a fox. "Aw, it's so cute. Hey Karen, why can't you be as cute as this fox?" he said, looking at her. Karen glared at him and punched him in the face. "Shut up, you idiot." Suigetsu rubbed his swollen cheek. "Geez, it was a joke," he said, though thinking it was true. "Anyways, why do you have a fox?" "I found it in a bear trap and saved it, but I think its leg is broken." Jugo looked at Karen. "Can you check it and heal it?" he asked. Karen hesitated for a second. "I'm not usually good with animals. I just need you to see if its leg is broken and reset it." She nodded. "Okay, I can do that." She walked to the tube but jumped back in surprise. Everyone looked at her. "What is wrong?" Jugo ended up asking. She pointed a finger at the fox. "That fox has chakra." Sasuke's interest was piqued. "Chakra? Are you sure, Karen?" She looked at Sasuke and nodded. "Yay, I can sense the chakra in the fox. All living things have chakra, but usually animals and plants are at a lower level than humans, but this fox is on our level." "It's as a jutsu?" Karen knew what she meant and shook her head. "No, I don't sense it being a person as disguise. It's just a fox with unusual chakra." Jugo looked uncertain for a second. "Sasuke-sama, could I keep it?" he asked. Whatever, do as you please. The fox might come in handy to us," he said and walked away. Karen, Jugo and Suigetsu watched as Sasuke left the area. Jugo then turned to Karen. "Can you still heal him?" She nodded. "Yay, follow me to the medic bay." She glared at Suigetsu. "And you stay here, we don't need you around, fish breath." "Hey, I resent that. Just because my element is water doesn't mean I'm a fish," he retaliated. "Yes, it does." Jugo looked between his two teammates as they continued to fight verbally before Karen started hitting Suigetsu. He shook his head and headed to the medic bay. Once he got there, it wasn't long before Karen showed up and got to work. She was able to reset the bone, for it was indeed broken, disinfect it and wrap it up with a splinter to keep it straight. Jugo thanked her and started walking out. "Hey Jugo," she called out. He stopped and looked at her. "Yes?" "The fox is a male, just in case you didn't know." He nodded and left. The whole time the fox stayed asleep. Jugo was surprised he didn't wake up with the yelling. He got to his room and laid the fox down gently on his bed. He took the sheets of his bed and rearranged it to make a nest and then put the fox in the bundle of blanket. He got in bed and held the bundle to his chest. He lightly stroked the fox's head. "I won't let anyone hurt you." He kept stoking until he slowly drifted off to sleep. Naruto was in a daze. He felt warm and comfortable where he was and snuggled into the warmth. His pillow was really warm and harder than he remembered. His eyes opened and he saw a chest. Eyes moving up, he saw a person. Naruto totally let out a manly squeak and backed away from the huge person, only to fall off the bed and hit the ground. He cried out in pain as his leg hit the ground none too softly. This whine caused Jugo to spring up from his slumber. He looked and saw that his fox friend was no longer on the bed. He looked down to the side and saw the little one on the ground, whining in pain. He sat on the edge of the bed and picked the fox up. "You shouldn't have tried to leave, little one. You are still injured," Jugo said softly to not startle the fox. Naruto looked up at this person. "Holy shit, you are huge," Naruto said. Jugo blinked at the fox. "I did not expect that answer. Why are you so bigger than I am?" "Because you're a fox and I am human?" Jugo said, more confused. "What?" Naruto yelled and squirmed out of the orange hairman's grip and fell to the bed. He scrambles away and saw a mirror. He ran to it, ignoring the pain in his leg. He stood in front of the mirror and his eyes widened. It wasn't a dream, it was real, he really was a fox. "Damn it, I thought it was a dream," Naruto thought. Jugo blinked and looked at the fox in confusion. "Are you okay?" He walked towards it. He looked at the male. Yay, I'm okay." "Wait, how can you understand me?" "I can understand and talk to animals." That made sense to Naruto. Wait, the man said animal, so he doesn't know that he is really a person. This can work in his favor if he hides who he is. While Naruto was thinking things over, Jugo picked up the fox and cradled him in his arms, being careful not to hurt the little animal's leg. "Does that scare you?" Jugo asked him. Naruto blinked, getting out of his musing, and looked at the orange-haired giant, which he noticed he was in his arms. Naruto shook his head. No, it doesn't, just kind of weird, I guess. Never knew someone who could talk to animals, he said and thought, except for Kiba with Akamaru and Shino with his bugs. Jugo nodded. There weren't many who could talk to animals, and the ones who could only talk to one, like cats or dogs, not every single animal. What's your name? Naruto then asked. Jugo. Do you have a name, little fox? Of course I do, it's Naru. He cut himself off, almost exposing who he really was. Naru? Naruto knew he couldn't take it back, so he had no choice but to go with it. Hi, my name is Naru. Are you hungry, Naru? It seemed that his stomach knew what the other was talking about because it made itself known by growling. Naruto blushed in embarrassment. I guess I'm a little hungry, he said shyly. Jugo nodded. Alright, I'll take you to the kitchen and we will find something to eat, and headed out his bedroom. They walked down the hallways, turning right or left when a corner was by. Naruto looked at everything. He didn't see an ounce of sunlight or windows. It reminded him a lot like Orochimaru's lair when they first went to retrieve Sasuke. He looked up at Jugo. Where are we? A hideout for me and my comrades. It's underground so our enemies cannot find us. Oh, I see. Why do you guys need to hide? Because there are many people after us and after the powers we possess. Powers? Each one of comrades and me has a special power, and many ninjas would do anything to possess them. Oh, like you can talk to animals? Sort of. He didn't want to tell Naru about his monster form because he thought that would scare the fox away. They soon arrived at the kitchen. Ah, we're here. When they arrived in the kitchen, they were met by Suigetsu and Karen. Hey there, Jugo, Suigetsu said, waving at the orange-hair boy. He then saw the golden fox in the giant's arms. I see the little guy is awake. Jugo nodded. His name is Naru and he seems to be doing fine now. A little startled at first when he woke up. Suigetsu laughed. I bet everything must be new to him. You have no idea, Naruto thought. Jugo sat down at a nearby chair. He placed Naru on top of the table where everyone was seated at. Naru looked at the two new people he never met. He looked at the male, Suigetsu. The male reminded Naruto of Kisame from the Akatsuki, but better and less scary except those razor-sharp teeth. He then looked at the female whose name he didn't know. She reminded him of Sakura. Oh, how he missed her and everyone else back at the village. He looked down and his ears drooped in sadness. Ah, you poor dear, Karen said and took Naruto in her arms and hugged the sad fox. Don't be sad, she cooed. Suigetsu and Jugo blinked at Karen's show of affection. The only one she ever show affection was towards Sasuke, and even that was obsessive fangirl affection. What the fuck? Suigetsu yelled. Karen glared at the sharp-teethed boy. Shut your trap, can't you see Naru is depressed and needs some loving? Now shut up or I'll beat you to a pulp, she continued to cuddle the soft fur fox. Man, she is a lot like Sakura, Naruto thought and tried to get out of her grasp. Jugo wasn't sure what to do. Suigetsu glared back at Karen, and can't you see that Naru doesn't want to be near you? See, he's trying to get out of your grasp right now. Face it, the fox doesn't like you, Karen, just like certain raven we all know. Karen glared at Suigetsu. Take that back, she said menacingly. You're the only one too blind to see that he doesn't like you. That's it. She threw a kunai at him which Suigetsu dodged. She places the fox gently on the table. Stay here, sweetie, I have to go kill and fry up some fish. Now get over here so I can kick your ass, fish breath. She chased after the white-haired. Naruto blinked, wondering what the hell was going on. He looked at Jugo for answered, but the other just shrugged. Will Suigetsu be okay? Naruto asked, sitting down in front of him. Yay, they always do this kind of stuff, Jugo answered. Now what do you want to eat? Ramen, he chirped happily. Jugo raised an eyebrow. Ramen? I thought foxes ate meats and berries, not ramen. Shit, I got to come up with an excuse now. The fox thought. He looked at Jugo going through the cabinets. Well, you see. I was in a village and I was looking for something to eat. I happened to smell something good and followed it. It was this soup with noodles in it. At first I didn't want to eat it, but I was so hungry I couldn't help it. It was so good, better than anything I ever eaten, and I sort of got hooked on it. He lied and looked away shyly. Jugo listened to the story and believed him. He understood that wild animals will go into human settlement in search of food, since human are the one who usually take animals' main food source. There was no way around it. Ah, I see. I know a few that are like you, liking certain human food more than nature. He looked for some ramen, not only for the fox but himself as well. Luckily there were a few from when they last got supplies from the last village they were at. He heated up some water and poured the ramen in separate bowls. Naruto let out a sigh of relief, glad the other bought his story. He watched Jugo make their ramen, his mouth watered at the thought of the precious ramen. It wasn't long before the water was boiling and he poured in the bowls, and then covered the bowls so it would soak the dry ramen. The process took 3 minutes. Once it was done he places the bowls at the table, one for himself and the other for Naru. Let it cool before you eat it, Jugo told the fox and picked his chopsticks up, getting some of the noodles on it and blew to cool it down. When it was cooled enough he placed them in his mouth and chewed. Naruto looked at his bowl and wished he had hands so he could use the chopsticks, but he didn't want to give himself away. After all, how many foxes do you see using chopsticks to eat? He blew on the ramen to cool it down. He thought it was cooled enough and tried to eat it but burnt his tongue. Ow! Naruto yelped out and his tongue hanged out. Jugo looked at the other and felt bad for him. He got a bowl of cold water and placed it next to Naru's bowl of ramen. Here, this should help. Naruto stuck his tongue in the water and it helped a bit. He took his tongue out and looked at Jugo. Thank you. No problem. Here, let me help you eat. Jugo got some of Naru's noodles and blew on it. He then moved it to Naru. Here. Naruto looked at the noodles and then at Jugo. Thank you, he said and ate them, moaning at the taste. Jugo lightly chuckled and got more. They repeated the process until all of Naruto's ramen was gone except for the soup part. By now it was cool enough so Naruto was able to drink it. Jugo finished his and took the empty bowls and placed them in the sink. That was really good. What are you going to do now? Naruto asked. What would you like to do? Naruto shrugged his shoulders. I don't care. Can't really do much with this bum leg. Jugo nodded. Well, I need to see someone, then we can go outside, okay? Okay. Jugo picked Naru up and headed out. They moved throughout the hideout, surprising to not meet up with Suigetsu and Karen fighting. They finally reached 2 massive doors. Jugo pushed at the doors and they both opened. They revealed a room, barely lit by the torches around it. At the end of the room in front of them stood a snake-like statue and at the base was a person, by the looks a male. Naruto looked at the room, glad that his eyesight allowed him to see clearly in the room. What is it you want, Jugo? A deep voice said. Naruto turned his head to the voice and saw the person at the base. His eyes widened. No, it can't be, he thought, and the person lifted his head and stared at the two, revealing 2 Sharingan eyes. Sasuke. Naruto's body shook. The last time he saw Sasuke was when he and Team Kakashi infiltrated Orochimaru's hideout and Sasuke almost attacked him. He briefly wondered where Orochimaru was. It wasn't a bad thing that he didn't see the snake-like man, but he wondered why. He might have to con an answer out of Jugo later for it. A burst of energy exploded through his body at seeing his best friend, brother, and before he knew it he was running towards Sasuke as fast as he could. Well, with a bum leg he tried. Sasuke, I found you, Naruto thought to himself. But before he could even get to the red eye man, a kunai shot at it and landed in front of him, barely missing his head. Naruto yelped as he stopped quickly so he didn't get hit by the weapon and looked at Sasuke with fearful eyes. Sasuke glared at the fox that was running towards him, briefly wondering why it was coming for him. He looked up at Jugo, raising his eyebrow. Why did it run at me? He asked. Jugo shook his head, not knowing the answer. I don't know, Sasuke. Maybe you looked familiar and he mistaken you as someone else. Sasuke looked back at the fox, who was frozen in fear it seems but still looking at him. There is only one person I could ever be mistaken of, and I doubt this fox would run to him. Of course he was speaking about his brother Itachi, and everyone in the room knew that. He got up and walked over to the fox, picking it by the scruff. He held it so he was looking at it right in the eyes. Why did you run at me? He asked it, as if trying to look into it. The fox gave out a mew-like noise but didn't say anything. It wasn't like Sasuke could understand. Sasuke, it, and tosses it at Jugo, who thankfully caught the young fox. Sasuke looked at Jugo. Keep that thing on a leash or something, he said. Now go away, I need to train more. Jugo nodded and left the room with Naruto safely in his arms. Once they were further away, Jugo stopped and looked down at Naruto. He held Naruto out with his hands under the fox armpits. Why did you go after Sasuke-sama like that? He asked. Naruto didn't answer. He didn't know what to say. He couldn't tell the orange-haired man that he was from the Leaf Village and was once Sasuke's friend. That would obviously ruin his cover-up. Shit, Kyuubi, what do I say? I know he won't leave me alone until I answer him, Naruto asked. Just say that you are a fox demon and your father or something told you about someone who looked like Sasuke and you thought it was him. The whole fox demon will also explain to the others as to why you have chakra. Wait, they know I have chakra? Oh yay, you were passed out during that time, Kyuubi said seemingly in thought. He looked back at Naruto. While you were passed out, I was still conscious. I wanted to make sure you were safe and I watched as Jugo took you here. They had that chick, Karen I think her name was, check you out. Apparently she's also a medical nin and she found out you had chakra. That didn't sit well with Sasuke and he wanted to kill you, thinking you could be a spy. Kill me? But obviously he didn't. Jugo and the others saved you. I have to really thank them for that. Okay, I will tell Jugo what you suggest. Meanwhile in the real world, Jugo stared at the fox, wondering what was going on. After he asked his question, the fox went limp and was spacing out. He knew the other was awake but not there mentally. This was making him slightly worried about Naru. He brought the fox to his chest and cuddled it. Are you okay, Naru? Naru shook his head and looked up at Jugo with his big blue eyes. Yay, sorry about that, I got lost in thought. He said, the reason why I went after that man was because I thought he was someone. You see, I'm a fox demon and my brother, Q, well he's more like my mother than brother. When he said that, Naruto heard a distinct asshole from the older fox which made Naruto giggle. Jugo, who heard it, just thought Naru was remembering something from this so-called Q and calling him mother. It would be funny, he figured. Anyway, he told me about this guy that really looked like the one you called Sasuke and I thought it was him, so he went after him. Was he a bad person you wanted to attack or good? Jugo asked. Naruto's ear pinned slightly, both. He was a really good person but another evil man corrupted him and he turned bad. Jugo could feel the sadness from the fox and knew whoever Sasuke's look-alike was obviously very precious to this fox, or at least the fox demons. I'm sorry, I wish I could help you. Naruto shook his head, it's okay. Jugo was such a sweet person he could help but give the other a lick on the nose. Jugo blinked, surprised by the action, but smiled and pet Naruto. This sweet moment was ruined by a growling noise. Both looked surprised before looking at Naruto's stomach that was growling. Naruto grinned sheepishly, sorry about that. We just ate an hour ago and you ate more than anyone. I get hungry easily? Jugo sighed, okay, I'll take you to get something to eat again. After taking Naruto to get something to eat the second time, they found Karen and Suigetsu, the male looking a bit beaten up but not by much. Jugo told the two why Karen was able to detect chakra in Naru, and it made sense to the two that Naru was a fox demon as demons have chakra. They talked for a while before Jugo happening to mention that they saw Sasuke in the training room, to which Karen ran off to watch. Suigetsu shook his head and made a crude remark of Karen being a succubus. Suigetsu had nothing better to do, so he talked about his life. Jugo knew little about it, so the new information was nice to hear. Naruto was listening closely to the white blue-haired boy, not for information but because the boy's life and stories were exciting. He didn't approve that the other stole Zabuza's sword and made it known by biting him, making the boy yelp in pain and glaring at the fox. Suigetsu looked at Jugo for an answer, to which the orange-haired boy asked Naru. Jugo then told Suigetsu what the fox said about it being wrong to steal from someone's grave, that fox demons take death seriously. Kyuubi told him that. Sorry man, I didn't know, Suigetsu said, then grinned. But can't change the past now, can I? So this sword is staying with me. Naru swat him with his tail, then went back to Jugo. He listened to the rest and he was glad the two didn't expect or pressure the fox to tell about his life. Before they knew it, it was night time, though being underground it was hard to tell. Naruto was exhausted by the day's events and everything he learned. As he slept next to Jugo, his mind wondered how long he will stay here and if he will ever go home. The days went by that Naruto lived with Jugo and the others, and he soon realized it's been a whole month he lived with them. A month that he was turned into a fox and a month that he was away from home. He wondered if anyone missed him or even looking for him back home. He missed everyone, Kakashi-sensei, Yamato-sensei, Ba-chan, hell, he even missed Sai. His depression was evident to everyone and they all tried to help him and making him happy again. Well, except Sasuke, Naruto barely saw him. The others thought that maybe he missed his home and family, but when confronted Naru about it he accidentally let it slip out that he didn't have any family except for Q. This saddens everyone, even Suigetsu, whom was thought to not openly express his feelings, and Karen was seen crying because she was able to feel what Naru was feeling. Jugo spent a lot of time with Naruto, taking care of him and everything. When Jugo had to train, Naru would watch him, and even the other two train by themselves or even together. Kyuubi told Naruto from being able to see what he saw, that the three were strong ninjas and had a lot of potential. One day a stray kunai headed at Jugo, who was too busy to notice it, but Naruto had. He sprung into action, running as fast as he can, and jumped in the air to catch the weapon before it hit Jugo. Everyone was surprised by it, and Jugo thanked Naruto for saving him. Naruto smiled and said he couldn't let the other get hurt, he was too precious to the fox. At that comment Jugo blushed, something he didn't know he could do, and told the fox he was special to him also. Naruto grinned and yelped happily. Everyone saw what Naruto did, catching the kunai in his mouth, including Sasuke, who was hiding. Sasuke came out in the open and looked at the fox, then at Jugo. Sasuke was more convinced that the fox was a person hiding and was ready to strike the fox until the other three humans stood in front of Naruto and stopped Sasuke. "What are you doing?" Sasuke asked. "This proves he's a ninja or associated with one." Jugo shook his head. "He's not a ninja, and there is a really good explanation as to why he caught the kunai and why he has chakra." "And what would that be?" Suigetsu pitched in before Jugo could answer. "He's a fox demon." Sasuke looked mildly surprised and raised an eyebrow at this. "A fox demon?" Everyone nodded. Demons have chakra and are able to do many things, as ninjas could even have a human form. Karen explained. "I know about demons, Karen," he said almost harshly. "But as I know, fox demons except Kyuubi were all exterminated." He looked down at Naruto. Naruto shied away from Sasuke's glare and looked up at Jugo. He said something to Jugo. Sasuke looked now at Jugo. He said, "Other than Kyuubi, he is the last one. Everyone else in the fox demon clan was killed by humans because of what happened with Kyuubi. He only survived because he was so small. He could hide where no one would even think to look." Sasuke gave one last hard look at Naruto. "Sounds reasonable." He then looked at Jugo. "He could be useful to us in the future, start training him." "Yes, Sasuke-sama," Jugo answered. "Another thing, why hasn't he shown his human form?" Naruto said something to Jugo and Jugo told Sasuke. His chakra was drained by running and fighting for his life and being injured. He doesn't know when or if he will ever be able to reveal it. Try to get him to the point where he can be more useful human than fox." Sasuke then turned and left the room. Everyone let out a breath of relief and turned to the fox, hugging him and comforting him after telling them he had no one in the world. It was then they realized that Naruto's leg was all healed up and took off the splint and bandages off. After they did that, they started training again, but this time including Naruto, who happily joined them and seemed to be a natural. They trained hard with each other and with Naruto. Naruto showed what he can do, though not any jutsus because he couldn't form the signs. But he was fast and caught all the weapons and able to sense any attacks and dodge them. After the long day of training, everyone was tired and hungry. Unfortunately, Naruto ate everything they had and they needed to restock their supply. Sasuke told the four to go into the nearest town and get the supplies, so they did. Naruto clung onto Yugo's back as they jumped from tree to tree at incredible speeds to reach the nearest town. It took them about 30 minutes to get there, and from what Naruto could tell, it was a small village with no ninja except those passing through. Jugo, Karen and Suigetsu were each given a list of items to get and went their separate ways to find them. Naruto obviously went with Jugo and helped him pick out the items, even helping him haggle prices to get them cheaper. Naruto could tell that Jugo wasn't used to being in the marketplace and buying things because some of the items he almost way overpaid them from what they were really worth. Luckily, the fox helped him from getting scammed and even lowering prices that seemed fair. Jugo was really thankful for the fox helping him. It was true he didn't have much experience in these things. They got everything they needed and stopped at a stall to get something to eat, but it wasn't just them there, someone was watching the two. When they exited the stall and went in search for Karen and Suigetsu, Naruto's ear twitched and without look back he knew what was happening. "Hey Jugo, we are being followed," Naruto said. I know I can feel it too, Jugo whispered back to Naruto. He led them away from town so one can get in the line of fire. When they were far enough in deserted area, Jugo stopped and turned around facing the ones who were following them. It was two male shinobis, both their faces were covered and no distinguished marks to help identifying them. You're a wanted man, one said holding a piece of paper out to show. The paper was a wanted picture of Jugo on it and a price. And we have come to collect, the other said and immediately ran at them in attack. Jugo was ready and dodged their attacks by jumping backwards. Naru jumped off of Jugo and onto the sidelines. Jugo really didn't want to fight them because if he did then he would become that monster again and destroy everything. Some part of his wouldn't care but Naru was here and he certain didn't want to hurt the fox or have him see what Jugo really was. He cared deeply about how Naru sees him and about the fox himself. The two men kept attacking Jugo who kept dodging. He knew this was going nowhere and he had to do something to win this fight. Naruto watched the fight from the sidelines, growling in frustration. Gah, I have to do something. Why isn't Jugo attacking back? Naruto thought. Finally he had enough of just sitting on the side and ran at the two men. He jumped in the air and chomped down on one of the men's arm who was about to throw a kunai. Ow, what the fuck? He man screamed and then looked at his arm to see the fox. Why you little bastard? He strikes at Naruto but the fox let go and got away from him. He stood in a fighting stance in front of Jugo facing the two enemies. He growled lowly, his hackles were raised, eyes leered and tail swishing back and forth angrily. Naruto strikes first and went after the two. He was able to distract them by biting and scratching at them. He wished he could do more and he could. Kyuubi told him he has powers in this body. Demon powers, but apparently they are blocked right now and Kyuubi is trying to unblock it. He was thinking too much that he didn't notice a fist coming at him and punching him in the side, sending him flying into a tree. The ninja was an earth elemental and surrounded his arm and hand in rock iron armor before punching Naruto, making it even more effective. Naruto whimpered as he hit the tree and passed out. Yugo's eye widened at seeing the fox he loved and cherished get attacked. He rushed over to the fox and carefully touched him. No, please let him be okay. Don't let him be dead. Please, he is all I have left, Jugo thought to himself. Naru was so lifeless, he wasn't moving and it didn't look like he was breathing. This made Yugo's mind go blank. The only true friend he had was dead. His eyes changed, the sclera turned black and his once red eye color turned yellow. His skin started turning dark on his right side and soon he let out a roar of rage. He turned to face the enemy who gasped at his appearance. They could feel the evil intent and tried to make a run for it but were cut off by Jugo attacked them. He was in a partial transformation. His right arm morphed into a huge axe bladed and strikes at the ninjas. They tried to defend themselves but were no match for the new him and died quickly. But it wasn't enough for Jugo. Overcome with pain and anger he set his new sights on the village. Naruto groaned as he opened his eyes. Ow fuck, I feel like something hit me, Naruto said to himself. Something did hit you, you idiot. Kyuubi said back. Smart ass, Naruto replied back. Hey kid, I think you should get up. You buddy is going on a rampage. He thinks you're dead. Huh? Naruto got up and looked around. He didn't see Jugo at first but soon caught his hair color, but something seemed different until he saw the change. What happened to him? He was with Orochimaru, remember? He must have gotten a cursed seal too. The killer intent coming off him is intense. Oh shit, I forgot about that. You better go after him. It looks like he killed those two who attacked us and is going after the village. Naruto couldn't let that happen. He had to bring Jugo back to normal. He got up with some effort, his body hurting bad from getting hit but he couldn't stop. He ignored his pain and rushed after Jugo. Jugo, stop please. Naruto yelled but Jugo didn't seem to hear. Jugo started attacking the village, destroying everything in sight. Suigetsu and Karen arrived at the scene but knew better to stay out of the way. They wondered what had set Jugo off to transform partial and attack the village. Naruto then saw Jugo about to attack some people. He knew from encountering other cursed seals people that they could easily kill people. No, I have to protect them. I have to protect everyone. What kind of Hokage will I be if I can't protect anyone? I have to stop Jugo and protect him too because he still needs protecting. Naruto said to himself and soon his body glowed white as he got closer to the group. Jugo raised his hand up to strike. No. Naruto yelled out, transforming in a human-like self. His hair was yellow like before but had red streaks and tips with a pair of fox ears on top. His whisker marks were gone, his body toned and muscled, and he had 2 tails to match his ears. Thankfully he had some pants on but no shirt. He looked almost like a different person. Naruto stopped the attack as Yugo's hand was coming down. The villagers ran off after Naruto stopped Jugo. Suigetsu and Karen's eye widened at seeing Naruto's transformation. Naruto, against his better judgment, hugged Jugo tight and started crying for reasons he wasn't sure. His head barely reached Yugo's chin. "Jugo, please stop, this isn't you. You're not like this. You don't like hurting anyone. You're a nice, sweet person, so please come back to me." Jugo stood there, his transformation slowly receding until his skin was back to normal, and then finally his eyes. He blinked and looked around, wondering where he was, not remembering much. He then felt a weight against him and something wet. The orange-haired man looked down and saw a pair of fox ears on top of a head of hair. Naruto moved his face away from Yugo's chest and looked up at the man. Jugo gasped, looking into the depths of such blue eyes, when at first he didn't know who this person was. After looking into those eyes he knew who it was. Jugo has never seen such a beautiful person in all his life. "Naru," he said softly, his hand reaching up to touch Naruto's cheek. Jugo has never seen such a beautiful person in all his life. Naruto smiled brightly, making Jugo suck in air at the beautiful scene. "Jugo, you're back. I'm so happy." He glomped the other, making them fall to the ground with Naruto on top. Jugo blushed deeply at the position they were in, but Naruto didn't seem to notice it. Suigetsu and Karen walked up to the scene, coming out of their hiding place. Can someone explain to me what the hell is going on?" Suigetsu asked. "How are you human-ish?" Naruto tilts his head, making everyone said inwardly, "Cute." "Human?" he said confused, then looked down and notices that he was human. He had arms, hands, leg and a tail? Wait, 2 tails? He touched his head and felt ears. After realizing all that, he passed out. Did he seriously just pass out? Suigetsu asked. Suigetsu, Karen and Jugo looked at the passed out Naru, who collapsed in Yugo's hold. Jugo held the half-fox close, rearranging him so he was holding the fox bridle style, and stood up. Suigetsu rested his sword over his right shoulder and looked at the two. "I can't believe he passed out because he turned human," he said. "It must have been a shock to him," Karen said. "Who knows how long he was stuck as a fox or if he ever learned to be partial human. No one knows much, if anything, about the demons. Especially since every time they come into contact with humans, we kill them." "Good point. No one will ever touch him. They will have to go through me," Jugo growled, making the other two blink and look at him oddly. The only time he ever growled was when he was in his other form, but now he wasn't showing any signs of that. Jugo was still a mystery. Suigetsu looked around and saw the villagers coming out, seeing the threat gone, and they were none too happy. "We should probably get going. They looked pissed, and we don't need old Jugo here to go on a rampage again." "I think you're right. Let's go," Jugo answered and took off, being careful to not wake up Naru. They traveled back to the base, but being a little slower than normal just because Jugo didn't want to disturb the fox and have him wake up and freak out again. It still didn't take long to get there, but the sun was setting, still the fox didn't stir. The three went their separate ways to their rooms, but not before putting away the supplies they got. They had enough to last about a month, including Naru's appetite. Jugo took Naru to their room and laid him on the bed. It was going to be a tight fit, but both could fit on the bed. The orange-haired boy yawned, feeling tired. Usually he's not tired this soon or fast, but because of his little encounter at the village, his energy has been drained. He got into bed, being careful of Naruto, and snuggled in. He pulled the covers over the two and held Naru tight against his own body and couldn't help but breathing in the fox's scent. It smelled like ramen and something else, something sweet, but he couldn't put his finger on it. It didn't take long for him to fall asleep, having the best sleep he has since he was born. Naruto woke up a few hours later, surprised by feeling another heat next to him. He saw that it was Jugo, but this time the other didn't look so big, well, not bigger than last time. He remembers what happened and had to stop himself from gasping. He looked down and saw his hands. He was indeed human again. With some effort he was able to get out of Yugo's ridiculous grip and out of bed. Quietly he went into the conjoining bathroom and stared at himself in the mirror. He looked so different and wondered why. That would be me, Kit, Kyuubi answered. What do you mean? And how did I become human again? Well, part human, Naruto asked, joining Kyuubi in his mind. I figured with that Uchiha here, he would recognize you if you looked like your normal self, so I modify you some. Now he would just think you look like your usually self but not be another person, understands? Naruto blinked. Sure? Kyuubi groaned and placed his head in his hands. Stupid Kit, he muttered. Uchiha won't know you are really you but only somewhat look like you, but you'll be someone else. Naruto blinked again. Kyuubi grunted in frustration. Damn it, I think you hid your head when you fainted. Well, maybe if you spoke in Japanese I would understand you. We're talking in English. Oh right, can you explain again? He asked sheepishly. I'll see if I can dumb it down. Uchiha would recognize you if you looked like yourself, right? He waited for the nod that Naruto understood. Right, so I altered your look so he wouldn't recognize you and therefore kill you, understand? Okay, I understand now, but doesn't explain why I'm like this now. I guess whatever affected you when this first happened wore off, but because you were a fox for so long it gave you some permanent attachments. Wait, so you mean I'll have these forever? Naruto tugged on his ears, which was a bad idea since it sent pain through his body, and he muttered an ow after. As far as I know, yes, but it's not a bad thing. Name one good thing from this. You're downright fuckable now. Kyuubi, you pervert. I'm just speaking the truth, kid. In your normal form you were fuckable, but now with the ears and tail you're cute, fuckable and why all over. Did you know that demons use their partner's tails as leverage when they are mating? It increases the pleasure. Naruto put his hands over his ears and closed his eyes. I'm not listening, la 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 la, trying to block out Kyuubi's perverted fact. He cut off the mind link and returned to the normal world. Fucking fox and his pervertedness, Naruto said and looked himself over. He decided to take a shower since he hadn't had a real one since he has been here. Sure, he gave himself a bath using his tongue like Kyuubi said, but it wasn't the same. He turned the water onto the shower, waiting for it to get to the right temperature before stepping in after shedding his clothes. He cleaned his body with soap, shampoo and conditioner. Pay more attention to cleaning his tails and ears since Kyuubi said those, especially his tail, gets dirty easy. Once he was all done he got out and dried himself. Naruto cursed when his tails got all poofed out and fluffy. He grumbled as he tried to straighten it down, ignoring the laughter in his head from one giant fox. After 10 minutes he finally tamed the beast that was his tails. He exited out of the bathroom quietly and remembered he had no clothes to wear. He cursed again and looked around. He found some of Yugo's clothes, though they were a little big. In fact, one of Yugo's shirts went down to his thigh. He put on a pair of boxers and a black top. He couldn't even put pants on because they were way too big. Soon the golden fox's stomach made itself known with a grumble and he decided to go out to seek some food. Luckily he remembered the way from when he was a fox. It didn't take the fox long before he reached the kitchen and no one was there. He smiled. I think I'm going to make something big, he said to himself. Just don't burn anything down. Naruto rolled his eyes and looked through the fridge, freezer and cabinets for the ingredients. Once he had them all he started to cook. Within minutes the aroma of food was lingering in the air and drifted down the halls of the base, getting through the doors and into their victim's nose. Jugo, Suigetsu, Karen and even Sasuke inhaled the heaven scent and woke up. Jugo, Suigetsu and Karen got out of their bed and quickly got dressed and followed the scent. They arrived at the kitchen where they saw their table piled with food like bacon, eggs, fresh fruit, sausages, hash browns, potatoes O'Brien, different juices and more. They then looked up to the one cooking all this and saw a blondish hair fox boy over the stove, flipping some pancakes. The shirt he wore barely covered his boxers, so it made it look like all he was wearing was the shirt, and with his tail it made it rise up a bit, giving everyone a look of his legs and just a little ass. Jugo was having an internal battle in his head at seeing the other. Must not fuck him. But he's so cute. But he's a fox. Fox demon, it's totally okay to fuck him. So cute. So why? No, must resist at least for now. Jugo shifted a little to hide the bludge that was growing in his pants. Luckily his pants were baggy enough to hide and no one noticed. Naruto finished putting the last pancake on the plate and turned around. His eyes widened at the sight of the three, but they went away and he smiled. Breakfast is ready. Hope you guys are hungry, he said and set the plate of pancakes down at the table. Suigetsu blinked. Did you make all this? Naruto frowned and gave him a deadpan look. No, my fairy godmother came by a visit and I wished all this up. Suigetsu frowned slightly before smiling and laughing. Haha, you're alright, he said and sat down, immediately started eating. Man, this is really good. Karen and Jugo took their seats too at the table with Naru and Suigetsu. Karen started putting food on her plate and took a bite. Her eyes widened. Ooh Naru, this is delicious. Thank you so much. Naruto blushed and grinned sheepishly. It's nothing but thanks. Where did you learn to cook? Naru looked down. Well, I've been by myself for a while, so I decided to learn how to cook and feed myself. Karen nodded and could tell he didn't really want to go into detail, so she didn't press. Jugo had been quiet and just stared at Naru. Naruto felt the feeling of eyes and looked up to see Jugo staring at him. It made him a little nervous. Aren't you going to eat? He asked. Jugo blinked, seemingly out of his daze, and looked down at the food. He nodded slowly and put food on his plate. He slowly started eat but kept looking at the fox, thinking of many things. Naruto, who was eating, still noticed this and was starting to get pissed off. He finally gave in and glared at Jugo. What? Why do you keep looking at me? He asked. Jugo was mildly surprised by the outburst, and so were the other two. Jugo then cleared his throat. You're wearing my clothes. He stated, not wanting to really say why he was looking. Naruto blushed. Oh yay. Well, I took a shower this morning and realized I had no clothes, so I borrowed some of yours, but they are too big. Jugo nodded. It's a good thing we got some clothes that we figured would fit ya then, Suigetsu said, and continued eating as well as everyone else. It was quiet and peaceful until Sasuke came in and saw the scene. What is going on here? He asked and then looked at Naruto. His eyes widened slightly, though many wouldn't notice, then glared. Naruto? Oh shit, Naruto thought. Everything seemed to come at a standstill. No body moved and barely even breathed. They looked at their leader Sasuke, then at Naru, wondering what was going on and why did Sasuke call the fox Naruto. They knew who the person was, although they never saw the kid. They knew Naruto was an old teammate of Sasuke that was determined to bring him back. Naru was sweating and on the inside he was running in a circle, screaming his head off and cursing Kyuubi for thinking this would stop Sasuke from recognizing him. He gulped and decided to play dumb. The fox boy tilts his head and looked at Sasuke questionably. Naruto? Who's that? I'm Naru, he said. Sasuke's glare intensifies. Jugo stood up. Sasuke, this is Naru, the fox demon that we had. He turned to his human-like form yesterday while he was in town getting supplies. He is not Naruto. Sasuke glanced at Jugo but stared at Naru. He didn't say anything but walked to Naru and grabbed his face. Naru struggled a little but couldn't get out of the grip. Sasuke looked Naru over. It was true, this person, although looked similar to the Dobi, there were a lot of difference such as hair length, color, no scars on cheeks, and the added fox ears and tails. Sasuke stared right into Naru's eyes that could match his former friend and crush, though he would never admit it. Sasuke growled when he realized this could be his Naruto, since the other looked differently and didn't act like the Dobi would. The blonde would have blown his cover the moment he first saw him. He wasn't stealthy. Sasuke smirked, thinking about, which made everyone wonder. He let go of the fox. No, you're not him, he said and left. Everyone seemed to let out a sigh of relief, and Jugo went to the fox and checked him over. Are you okay? He asked, and Naru nodded. Yay, I'm fine. Though Jugo wouldn't say it, he was furious that Sasuke touched Naru and so aggressively. He could see the finger marks around Naruto's face where Sasuke grabbed and squeezed. He growled inwardly, knowing those will leave a mark, maybe even a bruise. Is he always like that, the Sasuke dude? Naruto asked, still playing dumb. Suigetsu nodded. Sadly, he is. Just don't get in his way and ignore him and he will leave you alone. He then started eating again. No use for wasting food, right? Everything went back to normal. The four continued eating until they were done. Jugo stayed close to Naru and helped him clear the table, putting away any uneaten food to save for later and washing the dishes. Suigetsu and Karen thanked Naru again for breakfast and went on their own way. Thanks for helping me clean up, Jugo, Naru smiled. Jugo lightly blushed. No problem. The rest of the day Naru mainly cleaned different parts of the hideout, cooked meals and trained. Suigetsu made the comment that Naru was the perfect housewife, which earned a punch from both Naru and Karen. Naru because of the insult and Karen because of the East comment that girls were housewives. Jugo said silent and helped Naru with everything. He learned more about the fox as well as the fox learning more about Jugo. Naru fell down on Yugo's bed in exhaustion. Apparently Sasuke had a stick up his ass and made everyone train hard but not harder than Naru. They all guessed that since he looked familiar to Sasuke's old friend but isn't, Sasuke is taking it out on the fox. That Sasuke bastard is evil, Naruto huffed. Can't believe he made us train all day, I can't feel my legs. You'll get used to it, Jugo said walking into the room. That bastard didn't even let me change into some comfortable clothes. I was stuck wearing your shirt all day. Thank Kami I had boxers on. Jugo blushed again at the thought. He was actually quite happy about seeing Naru like that. I swear I think they perv was looking at me. Yugo's eyes darkened at that thought but calmed himself. He didn't want to freak the fox out. I'm going to go take a shower, Jugo announced. Naruto looked at his and nodded his head. Once Jugo went into the bathroom and closed the door, Naruto snuggled into the bed too tired to care about anything else. It didn't take long for him to fall asleep. Jugo came out 10 minutes later and put some boxers and PJ pants on before getting into his bed and snuggling against the already asleep fox. The next was much like the last. They mainly trained because Sasuke wasn't satisfied by their performance. Kyuubi told Naruto that he was able to shift forms so he would do that while training to make sure he can do everything in both forms. As the days went by, Karen and Naruto hung out more since he could actually talk. Even though at times she was kind of a bitch and was obsessive over Sasuke, which Naruto still didn't understand, she was actually nice and kind person. She reminded him of Sakura, but only better. Karen liked being around his calm demeanor especially since everyone else's were anything but calm. The only true bad part about her was the face. She liked to play dress up with him but he couldn't run away. She had a strong hold. The one time he did escape he ran into the other three males. Suigetsu busted out laughing. Jugo was blushing hardcore and though you couldn't tell Sasuke was blushing too. All because Karen forced Naruto into blue dress that made his eyes pop out, makeup, heels and tamed his hair enough to straighten it and put ribbons in. All in all he looked very feminine and wise since the dress clung to his figure and he had one that could make any girl's jealous. Sasuke disappeared but Naruto swore he saw blood dripping from his nose and Jugo looked like he was going to eat him. Thankfully Karen caught him and took him back to her room. Never again will he do that. As more days passed the group noticed how Jugo was always with Naru wherever he went. Karen and Suigetsu noticed the way how Jugo acted towards Naru and the subtle moves he put on the fox but the fox himself was obvious to Yugo's hints. Naru didn't notice the way how Jugo always held him in his sleep. He did question that maybe they should get another bed because Naru didn't want to make the orange hair boy uncomfortable but Jugo said it was okay, he liked sharing. There was also the problem of getting a bed in there. Naru finally got his own clothes besides the ones Karen made him wear and they were altered for his tails which he was thankful for. There were times where Suigetsu, Karen and or Jugo had to leave for intel or missions but Naru was able to figure things out to do. He wanted to go but Sasuke was so against it that he couldn't leave. Now being part human he could leave and try to get back home but Sasuke has been watching him like a hawk and Jugo never left him alone enough to make a break for it. There was that secret feeling that he didn't want to leave but he ignored it for now, not wanting to believe that he wanted to with the enemy than his friends. Jugo and Karen came running into the training room where Naruto was training with his tails and Sasuke creepily watching. They both stopped and turned their attention to the two who entered. Sasuke noticed that Suigetsu wasn't there. "Where is Suigetsu?" he asked. "He stayed behind after we got information on his whereabout," Karen said. Sasuke looked more interested. "And where is he?" "We heard information that he and his companion are heading to the Wave Country for reasons still unknown. We found this to be reliable information since we have caught a glimpse of them. Suigetsu stayed behind to keep on their trail but mainly because he wants that stupid sword." Sasuke stood up. "Get some supplies and catch up with me," he said and disappeared. Naru tilted his head and went up to the two. Who are we going after?" he asked. Jugo looked at the fox. "Itachi." "You mean Sasuke's brother?" Karen and Jugo gave his a perplexed look. "How did you know that?" "Shit thinks of something quick," Naruto thought. Well, who doesn't know who Itachi Uchiha is? Even we demons know about him. I figure they were brothers since they look so much alike. Karen narrowed her eyes a bit but seemed to buy the lie. Jugo thought for a moment, then had a look of realizing something on his face. So that's why you went after Sasuke that one time. You thought it was Itachi, but how do you know him? I don't really know him personally, but I have seen him around and stuff. Karen nodded. I understand now. Where have you seen him? Around here in the fire country mainly. Also say the demon country. Wait, there is a demon country? Yes, I'll explain later, now do it. Also in the demon country. Both Karen's and Yugo's eyes widen. The demon country, why would Itachi go there? It was a place for only demons, and any human that went there died. It didn't help that no one truly knew where the demon country was or how to get there. And of course demons rarely left that area, since anytime they did humans would attack them, then a whole fight would issue with many humans dying. Well, we better get our things and report to Sasuke before he gets pissed, Jugo announced. Oh right, I forgot. Karen left to go get their supplies. I guess I'll stay here, Naruto said. He didn't mean it to sound sad, and his ears gave away his emotion by pining to his head in sadness. Jugo lightly hugs the other. Now who said you were staying here? You're coming with us. Naruto's ears and head perked up. Really? Jugo nodded. Naruto grinned. Yata, he yelled. Well, what are we waiting for? Come on. He pulled Jugo along. He wanted to get out of this dark, cold hideout bad. Jugo smiled, glad the fox was happy. They got their supplies and headed out to catch up to Sasuke. This would have been a perfect time to escape, but Naruto saw this as the perfect opportunities to get information on the Akatsukis. Jugo, Karen and Naruto quickly caught up to the other two, Sasuke barely giving them a glance. He was more set on moving as fast as possible so he could get to Itachi and kill him. Naruto, because of his fox-like tendencies, ran and jumped from tree branch to tree branch using his hands and feet on all fours, unlike the humans using two. He was always like that even before the messed up Judas. This gave him the edge of moving faster and gaining more distance than the other four. The blonde didn't know why, but he felt anxious to meet up with the organization that was planning on kill him. It could be that he hasn't battled anyone since before he was turned into a fox, or his fox demon traits are showing more and wanting to get revenge. Sasuke narrowed his eyes slightly watching the fox. He didn't really trust him and didn't know why he was so eager. Thoughts ran through his head. Maybe the fox knew Itachi. Maybe they were friends or enemies. Not much is known of the fox demon who reminded him of Naruto. He was a puzzle and Sasuke planned on solving that puzzle. Jugo was worried about the fox. It was odd that the other seemed to know Itachi and why the fox seemed more eager to get to him than even Sasuke. He glanced at Sasuke, who seemed to focus on the fox as well. He wondered what the other was thinking and hoped no ill intentions against his fox. Otherwise he will protect him and kill the raven. Jugo's eyes widened in realization. When did he become so possessive, even threatening to kill the one who freed him from Orochimaru's grasp and gave him meaning to life? He looked back at the raven and noticed his gaze, though still on Naruto, seemed more centered on his ass, and raven was smirking. Jugo growled internally. He is ours. A voice yelled in Yugo's head. Our mate. Jugo lightly shook his head. Where did that come from, and mate? He wasn't an animal or demon, so why would he call the fox his mate? He didn't know what was going on and decided to ignore it for now, focusing more on what is going on in the outside world. It didn't take long for them to catch up to Suigetsu. Where are they? Sasuke demanded. Suigetsu chuckled nervously and scratched the back of his head. Well, you see? You lost them? He said in an eerie, calm tone. No, I just can't seem to locate them right now. Suigetsu? He put his hands in front of him in a mock blocking. Hey, wait a minute, it's not my fault. They were really fast and I couldn't keep up. Sasuke started to reach for his sword when he paused because Naru started smelling Suigetsu. Hey, get off. The sharp tooth yelled but was ignored. The fox continued to smell the other until he stopped and his tail started wagging. Everyone wondered what is wrong with the fox, but Jugo realized what the other was doing. Naru turned to the others, grinning happily. I got his scent. Itachi's? Karen asked. Naru nodded. Yup, now we can track him down. How do you know Itachi's scent? Sasuke questioned. Karen and Jugo looked at each other in uncertainty. They know how but were afraid to tell Sasuke for what he might do to the little fox. Luckily Naruto was quick to think. I sort out Suigetsu's scent as well as anything such as blood, sweat, food and stuff like that out and find the scent that was foreign. So this surely has to be Itachi's, right? He tilts his head to foray innocence. Sasuke looked skeptical but nodded, seeming to take that answer. Karen and Jugo let out a breath of air that they were holding. Lead the way then. Naruto nodded and took off, with the other four trailing behind him. He had to slow down a bit for them to keep up with his speed. Along the way Suigetsu kept talking about how he was going to get Kisami's sword and how powerful and big it was. To be honest, it sounded really perverted, but that's Suigetsu for you. They have been traveling for hours. Obviously Itachi and Kisame traveled faster whether or not if they knew they were being followed. Naruto had slowed down as he was becoming tired and hungry from the mission. Sasuke wanted to keep going and even threatened Naru, but Jugo stopped him and told the Raven that it was best to all rest. Naru was the only thing that could lead them to the other's brother, so it was best to keep him strong and well rested if they wanted to fight. Sasuke reluctantly agreed and they sat up an area to camp at, where Sasuke sulked a little for not being able to kill his brother yet. Jugo and Karen set up tents for them to sleep as well as traps just in case. Suigetsu went to get some fresh food from a river they were nearby, and Naruto got some firewood so they can cook the meals and stay warm. Suigetsu came back with some fish he was able to catch and descaled and deboned them. He then poked a stick through them and cooked them over the fire. Naruto sat by Jugo as the fish were cooked. No one really spoke and it was bothering Naruto, but he didn't dare do anything. Sasuke looked pissed when he said he couldn't go further. A part of them wanted to argue back with the Raven like he would do before, but that would make the other suspicious of who he was. Stupid Teme, he thought, and ate his multiple fish that Suigetsu got. He never ate much of anything besides ramen, and he admits all the food he has been able to eat and try were really good. He couldn't remember a time he ate fish. Naruto yawned and leaned against Jugo as his eyes started to get heavy. Jugo looked down and smiled at the fox. He excused them and took the fox in his arms and into their tent. Naruto yawned again and was half asleep, not noticing that he was moved. Jugo carefully laid him down and covered him in his own blanket, then he laid down as well. He was surprised to feel Naru grabbed onto his arm and snuggle up to him. He smiled and wrapped his arms around the other and held him close. In a rare moment of gentleness he kisses the blonde's hair. "Good night," he whispered. The night was uneventful and it didn't take long for everyone to fall asleep. They set up enough traps to warn them and someone came within a 100-meter around them. At some point of the night, Naruto woke up, his eyes still drowsy from sleep. He had the urge to pee and carefully and quietly left the tent and outside. He walked to the outer part of their campsite so he can find a place to go. He found a tree and went behind it, unzipping himself and relieving his bladder. After he was done he zipped himself back up and started heading back. He was still half asleep and his tail swayed lightly. There was a noise of twigs breaking and his ears perked up, but his mind was slow to understand. He turned his head to where the noise was coming from and suddenly saw blackness. Kyuubi, with the last of his energy before it was sucked away from the unknown assailant and he passed out, sent out a message to the one whom loved the blonde and will become his mate. Jugo sat up quickly, gasping and panting. He heard a voice in his head, telling him that Naruto was in danger, his mate was in danger. He looked next to him and noticed that the fox was gone. He started to panic and quickly threw the blanket off him, got up and ran out of the tent. His eyes easily adjusted to the lack of light as he looked around for Naru. He wanted to believe the other just got up to get something to eat or drink, even possibly to relieve himself, but couldn't find him. Around the same time Jugo got up, so did Sasuke, and he quickly got out and into fighting stance. He felt his brother's chakra, but once he got out he felt nothing. Meaning his brother was here, knew where they were and left. He growled at the fact of missing his brother. Sasuke then realized he was not alone. He looked over and saw Jugo, looking slightly panicked as he was searching for something. He didn't know what until he felt, or rather didn't feel, the fox's chakra. His mind turned and he came to the conclusion that his brother was here and took the fox, or the fox went with him. It would seem they will only know what happened when they find them. He felt around for the Naru's chakra, that he has grown used to and his body memorized, but couldn't feel it. His shoulders sagged in sadness at realizing his fox was gone. But then his shoulders went rigid as he felt two faint chakras, one he didn't recognize but felt power, while the other was extremely power and very similar to Sasuke's own. This meant that Itachi was here and he took the fox. The first thing that Naruto noticed when he woke up was he was in a dark room and not in the tent that he remembered. Then he noticed there was no Jugo next to him, making him let out a small whimper. He looked around to try to figure out where he was. With his improved eyesight he was able to see better in the dark, but it still didn't give away anything. He was simply surrounded by rocks, most likely a cave-like room or a room that was dug out from underground. He tried to remember what happened to get him here, and last night, or at least what he thought was last night, played back to him. He was going to the bathroom when he heard a noise and smelt a different scent and then darkness. So I've been kidnapped, Naruto thought to himself. But by who? He couldn't remember what he smelled earlier, so he wasn't even sure if he was taken by a male or female. He sat up and noticed he wasn't chained up or anything, so he was free to move. When he stood up though, that's when he felt a weight on his neck. He went to touch it and felt the coldness of metal. Why he didn't feel it on his neck before he wasn't sure. He tried to get it off but it was stuck on. He could feel what it is doing to him though. He felt weaker than normal, and so far he hasn't heard anything from Kyuubi. It must mean that this collar was a chakra suppressant, which does explain why he wasn't chained up or anything. If he doesn't have chakra, then he couldn't do much except rely on his fox demon natural abilities. His ears flickered to listen to any sound, but he could hear nothing. It was eerie quiet, and the fox didn't like that. The sound of a metal door started to open, making Naruto turn his head towards it. His ears now pinned to his head and his eyes narrowed as he growled at whoever was coming in. A bright light shined in, making the blonde close his eyes until he raised his arm up and used his hand to try to block out some light so he could see. But the light was extremely bright and his hand blocking did little to help. A figure stepped in the middle of the doorway, blocking most of the light. Naruto could now lower his hand as he could see better, but the light surrounding the person made it outline his body so the fox couldn't see what the person even looked like. "Hello little fox," a deep, obviously male voice said. Meanwhile, with Jugo, Karen, Sasuke and Suigetsu, the group was rushing through the forest, tracking with little chakra's signature they were able to detect. Jugo was angry that his fox was taken from him and tore through the forest, destroying any trees in his path. Karen, Suigetsu and Sasuke knew better than to mess with Jugo when he was like this. They stayed a safe distance away from the orange-haired male and let him do whatever. Karen and Suigetsu were worried for him. They knew Jugo liked the fox demon, but not to this extent. Sasuke was mostly indifferent but didn't like how Jugo was easily smitten by the fox demon, a sign of weakness. But Sasuke will never admit that he harbors some feelings for the fox as well, but it was more due to the demon reminded him of another blonde hair, loud-mouthed, Kyuubi container back in Konoha. He would only admit to himself that he loved Naruto, but his hatred for his brother and wanting to become stronger were more important than anything. Perhaps when he defeats Itachi, he will go back and kidnap the blonde, since he doubts the other will come willingly. Or he may rather replace the blonde with Naru, since it will be less of a hassle to deal with Naruto fighting him and have Konoha on his ass. After all, Naru looked and acted a lot like Naruto. The only problem with that is the man ahead of him, Jugo. But Sasuke knew he could defeat the other and take his prize. But all these will be answered in due time. For now, a formulated plan was cooking up in his head of what to do when they find Naru and get rid of everyone else. Back to Naruto. "Who are you?" Naruto asked bravely. "I'm hurt you don't remember me," the voice said in mock hurt. "Well, I can't really see who you are, so I don't know if I know you or not." Naruto growled, "Stupid kidnapper." The other said, but Naruto could just feel the other was smirking. "You're right little fox, or should I say." He sudden was in front of the fox boy and the room light up, letting the fox see much clearly, but because of the body in front of him it wasn't a sudden shock to his eyes, so he didn't need to let them adjust. He gasped at who it was. "Naruto. Itachi." He seemed to breathe out like he was holding his breath. "Wait, how did you know it was me?" Itachi chuckled. "Silly fox, only an idiot wouldn't know who you are." Naruto's sweat dropped. Glad Sasuke didn't hear that. That would kill his ego. "So why haven't you killed me and take Kyuubi out yet?" Itachi sighed, straight to the point. He straightens up and backed away from Naruto. "Believe it or not, we don't want to kill you or anyone like you to obtain the tailed beast." "What? But you guys killed Gaara until old lady Chiyo brought him back." "That was a mistake on Sasori's and Deidara's part, as well as you and your team. They were supposed to take care of him." The process is rather painful, delicate and time-consuming, so if it is rushed or disturbed it can easily kill the person, which is what happened. There is also that factor that the host body just might not be strong enough to withstand the process, but usually being a Jinchuriki you can handle it. Gaara's death was not foreseen since he was very powerful and we believed he would have lived, but it seemed that Deidara's and Sasori's fight with him did more damage than wanted. I'm sorry that he died, but it was lucky that he was brought back. Naruto, not expecting this, letting what Itachi said soak into his mind. Oh, but you guys want to take over the world. That is another misunderstanding, but this can all be explained from our leader when you see him. Your leader? Hi, but he had to go run an errand, so it may be a while before that happens. Until then, please feel free to explore, but if you try to escape you won't get far and then you'll be confined to your room. Wait, are you saying that if I try to escape you guys will ground me? Essential, that would be simplified way to say it. Can't you just say yes? Itachi just stared at the fox, making Naruto sighed. So, can you show me around? He asked. That is possible. Ga, you are hopeless. Itachi gave him a look like, do you want me to show you or stay in the room? I'm sorry, please lead the way. Itachi turned and walked out the room, Naruto behind him, but when the blonde hit the entrance of the door he was shocked. This made him yelp and fall backwards onto his butt. What the hell is that? He yelled. Itachi looked passive. It would seem I forgot to take down the barrier. So sorry, but there was no sincere in his voice. Sorry my ass, Naruto muttered as he got up. Itachi pretended he didn't hear the other and did some hand signs and touched the door. It glowed a light blue color and so did Naruto's collar. The raven looked at Naruto, tell him silently to move. They both walked out the room, this time without Naruto getting shocked. Outside the room, Naruto was amazed. He assumed that like when he was trying to get Gaara back, the Akatsukis would be living in an underground lair similar to Orochimaru's place, but it was the opposite. The hallway was made of what looked like marble. It was white with black lines going through in all different directions. It was really shiny and smooth. The walls seemed to just be rock and dirt from the underground hideout, but there was no dirt or dust on the ground. Naruto didn't know if there was a jutsu that was keeping the floors clean or if someone just happens to clean it all the time, but he bet it was the first one. There were also lights embedded into the walls that lit up the hallway and was almost as bright as if it was daytime in a normal house. Oi Itachi, if you guys don't want to hurt me or anything, then why am I wearing this collar? He pointed at it. I never said that, he replied. But it's to make sure you don't run away. We still need you for our plans. You could have just asked. Itachi stopped and turned to the blonde with an eyebrow raised, but other than that no expression. Would you have really come with us if we did? It was truly a question since he knew the answer. Naruto looked away sheepishly. No, he replied, a little embarrassed by the conversation. Itachi said nothing and turned back to continue walking down the hall. As they walked, they passed by a few doors on each side and each door looked differently. What's with the doors? They let people into new rooms. He stated the obvious though knew what Naruto meant. Naruto growled, that's not what I mean. Then you should be more specific. Naruto sighed, fine, where does each of these doors go to and why are they different from each other? Some of the doors lead to random rooms such as a training room, hot spring, bathroom, etc. But the doors that have certain designs on them lead to other members' rooms. Everyone specialized their own door because they were getting confused and would enter the wrong room. Which lead to headaches for the rest of us. Naruto looked at the taller raven, questionable from that last part. Itachi sighed, he could feel what the fox confusion. It would lead to fights or someone complaining. Oh okay, he sees a door with a dollar sign on it. Who's that room? Kakuzu. And that one, he pointed to one with a scythe with 3 blades on it. That's Hidan's. What's that on? Are you going to ask me every door we pass? He stopped and stared at the other, his red eyes seeming to darken. Naruto shrunk back. No, he said softly like a child who just got scolded. Itachi turned back and walked away. Naruto followed, this time not asking any more questions. They finally reached their destination. Naruto peeked from behind Itachi and saw a large room that looked like a dining room connecting to a kitchen and a living room off to the side. Naruto could see that same statue that he saw when saving Gaara off to the right of his in what he would guess in the entrance living room. The floors were the same, but there was a large wooden table, easily could fit 10 people, with chairs to match. In what he could see in the living room, there were 2 couches, some lamps, love seats, coffee tables and other normal living room items. The fox could see a few of the Akatsuki members lounging about, some he recognized and others were new. A man with an orange spiral mask turned and saw the two and ran to them. "Itachi!" He yelled and launched himself at said person who sidestepped, making the orange-masked man to hit the floor. He looked up at Itachi. "Ah, why did you do that, Tachi? Toby just wanted to hug you." Itachi just looked at the other impassively. Toby got up and dusted himself. He noticed someone next to Itachi, a boy with animal-like ears and tail. "Ooh, who is this?" He closed the distance between Naru and looked at him from all angles. "That is the Kyuubi kid." "Not the Kyuubi kid doesn't have ears and a tail, nor colors like that." "Toby knows, Toby is a good boy. What your name?" Naruto looked at him and to Itachi then back. I'm Naru." "Yay, nice to meet you, Naru," Toby said happily and took Naruto's hand and shook his furiously. "Aw, it's nice to meet you too, Toby," Naruto said back. Yup, I'm Toby. Toby is a good boy." Okay?" He wasn't sure why the other was speaking in third person. It was weird. "Don't mind him, he was dropped on his head when he was a baby," said a different male voice. Naruto looked over and noticed it was Kisame, one of the few people he recognized, who spoke. "Fishy is a liar," Toby said, pointing a finger at Kisame. "Oi, don't call me a fish." "Or what?" Kisame put his hand on his sword, making Toby let out a yelp and hid behind Naruto. "Save me, Naru, use your foxiness on the fishy." Naruto was at a loss of words, obviously not expecting this kind of situation or personality from the famous Akatsuki members. He was about to say something but another sound interrupted him. It was his stomach, making its presence known. He blushed lightly from embarrassment. Toby looked at the fox with his head slightly tilted. "Ooh, is Naru hungry? We need to get him some food." "Good luck on that. We are too far away to simply get food, and Kakuzu said we are over budget, so we can't get any food yet." "But what will Naru eat? He has to have something, his stomach calls for it." "We have food in the kitchen, you idiot, make something." "No, that little bitch almost killed us when he tried to cook last time." A voice said, it was a silver hair guy. "Oh yay, forgot he did that. Shit, Hidan, good catch." Kisame replied, thinking about the incident. I can cook food," Naruto piped up. "Just tell me where everything is and I can make myself, or everyone food." He figured since they were nice to him so far he could at least make them food. "Yay, Naru will make yummy food." Toby hugged the fox boy. "Man, we haven't had an actual cooked meal since, well, ever," Kisame said. "All right kid, you can cook but don't let him do anything," he pointed and glared at Toby. Toby turned his face at Kisame and stared, but Naruto had a feeling he was sticking his tongue at the other, it just couldn't be seen through the mask. "Can I help please, Naru?" Toby asked, turning his attention to Naruto and somewhat hug, or cuddle, a huggle? You can help with cutting and stuff but I'll do the actual cooking, okay?" He couldn't say no to the other, it's just how he is. "Yata, so cool." Naruto looked at Itachi, "So where is the kitchen?" Itachi turned and pointed his index finger to his right, pointing at a pair of salon-like door. He smirked lightly, knowing what the blonde will find and not like it. "Alright, let's get to work." Naruto smiled and walked to the kitchen with Toby right behind him, not noticing everyone disappearing. They didn't want to be dragged into that damage. When he pushed past the doors, his eyes widened. The kitchen was a disaster. There were pots and pans everywhere, stacked higher than he could see in the dimmer area. There was trash everywhere and a weird smell from Kami knows what. In short, it looked like a bomb went off. "What the hell happened here?" Naruto yelled. Toby tried to make food but it didn't work out right. Naruto looked at Toby like he was insane. "You did this?" "Yup," like he was proud of his accomplishment. "And you didn't clean it up?" "Was Toby supposed to?" He tilted his head. Naruto smacked himself in the forehead. How could someone forget that? He sighed and went over to look at the damage. There was black and brown stuff everyone, caked onto the counters and cabinets and what seems to be the stove. He touched some of the black gunk that was on the stove and it was as hard as a rock. The pots were not better. It was worse than a guy jack off into his socks and waiting to wash them. He touched something else and it moves and snapped at him. "Ah, what the fuck is that?" Naruto yelled, holding his hand away and close to his body as shock. "Toby thinks it once was food." He pointed it with a wooden spoon he found. "How can that be once food? It's growling and alive." Toby shrugged, poking it more. It growled and bit the wooden spoon and took it from him. This made Toby scream too in fear. It ate the spoon and hissed at them before slowly dragged itself away to who knows where. They both just watched it, too afraid to go after it and kill it. Alright, this is bad. We need to clean this before we can cook at all. He sighed. This is going to be a lot of work for just the two of us. I wish I can create shadow clones, then it would be so bad. Why can you? Because this collar seems to take away my chakra. He pointed at it. Oh, Toby can help with that. Toby did some hand signs and muttered something, but even Naruto couldn't hear it. Naruto felt a sudden release, like a weight off his shoulders, but it was small. He knew he wouldn't get all his chakra back, although how weird, childish Toby is. There is a reason why he is in the Akatsuki. This could be all a ruse that the other does to bring in unsuspecting people to catch them off guard. There, Toby was able to let Naru have some of his chakra back, but not all. Leader Sama and Tachi-chan would kill Toby if he did that. I think Itachi would kill you if he hear you call him that. Naruto giggled. Toby giggled too. Alright, here we go. Shadow clone jutsu. He did the hand signs and 10 clones appeared. They all expressed some matter of disgust or disgruntle about having to clean the mess, but their hunger outweighed it. Toby-san, do we have cleaning products? Naruto asked. Toby nodded and showed them where it was and brought out a few to give to the other clones. And thus they began their greatest challenge yet, cleaning the disaster that was the kitchen. A few hours later, they finally got the kitchen cleaned up. Naruto and his clones did most of the work. In fact, Toby was still cleaning the glass cup that he started on. Naruto wiped the sweat off his forehead. They're all done. The kitchen sparkled and now everything inside the kitchen was clear to see. There was a fridge, deep freezer and stove. All the dishes and pots and pans were in the cabinets, as well as the cooking and eating utensils put away. They cleaned out the fridge, throwing away food that was bad and possibly becoming alive. And Toby helped. Toby said, holding a glass cup that he was cleaning. Ah, was that the same cup I gave you when we first started? Yup, and Toby got it all clean. He presented it to Naruto, who took it. Naruto looked at the cup. Toby worked hard to clean it. The cup was still dirty with dust and some kind of sticky brown substance stuck to the sides of the cup. He got the image of the man cleaning the cup while he and his clones were going by him, sweeping, mopping and everything else as time passed. Yay, good job Toby, Naruto said with a nervously laugh and threw it backwards to let a clone catch it, and they discreetly cleaned the cup so you can now see through it. Then they all disappeared in exhaustion. Now Toby can help with cooking because Toby is good, huh? Naruto smiled nervously. If he can't even clean a cup, I'm afraid of how it will be when he tries to help cook. I can't let him do anything without doing some damage, he thought. But I think he would cry if you told him no, Kyuubi said to him. Kyuubi, you're alive. Well, I mean, I can hear you now. Yes kid, I know. It was that damn collar. It suppressed most of our chakra, making it hard for me to contact you. So the Akatsukis have us? Yay, but they are being nice and everything. I don't think they want to harm us, Itachi said so. We'll see about that. Like that human saying, just keep on your toes. Don't worry, I won't let my guard down. When Naruto became aware of his surroundings, Toby was waving his hand in front of him. Naruto blinked and jumped back. What? He asked. Oh, you're alive. Toby was worried when Naru was staring off into space with his eyes glazed over and not responding to what Toby was saying. Oh, haha, sorry about that. He scratched behind his head. It's okay, Naru can talk to Kyuubi later. Naruto's eyes widened and he looked at the other. How did Toby know what he was doing? But Toby just ignored it and went to the fridge. Let's make some yummy food. Naruto decided it was best to ignore what happened and started to help out with food. Sadly, he had to let Toby help him, so he made the other cut up the vegetables while he did all the cooking and measuring. Surprisingly, there was a lot of good, unspoiled food in the kitchen for Naruto to use. So while Toby was cutting up assorted vegetables such as cabbage and mushrooms, Naruto was cutting piece of beef into thin slices and making a broth in a cooking pot. He added some of the vegetables that Toby cut up into the cooking pot with the broth, each vegetable getting its own spot, not mixing with the others. He also put noodles and tofu on the other side to cook as well. Once all the ingredients, including all the vegetables that Toby cut up, were in the pot, he then placed the thin meats on top. While that was all cooking, he started to make enough rice for everyone as well as dipping sauces. He told Toby to set the table with plates and utensils, which the equally hyper as Naruto man did so. Once the food was all prepared, Naruto then told Tobi to get everyone. Once Tobi was gone, the foxboy put on the table the cooking pot that had the meal and a bowl that had rice as well. The only drinks he could find were water and sake, so he poured everyone a glass of water, then left the bottle of sake with cups so if anyone wanted some they could have it. Naruto then took out a plate that had something else, but it was put to the side on the kitchen counter for now. It didn't take long for everyone to show. Naruto obviously saw a few people he knew and meet earlier, but saw others he did not know. "Whoa, you made this?" Kisame asked, surprised by the delectable food that was presented. Naruto smiled and nodded. "Yup, so help yourself. It's shabu shabu. Man, this looks fucking good," Hidan said as everyone took a seat and made their places and ate. A man that resembled a plant sat at the end, looking at the food but didn't touch it. Naruto smiled and ran into the kitchen to get the plate of food he got out earlier and went back to the table. He placed the food in front of the man. "Hi, Tobi told me about you, Zetsu, right? You guys are partners and he loved to talk about you. He said you don't eat normal food but people." Zetsu just stared at the foxboy, which made Naruto more nervous. Well, I made you this special meal. I found it in the freezer so I thought you might like it. I added a few things to make it tastier. Zetsu didn't say anything and looked at the food that was presented to him. In the silence, Naruto got more nervous and looked up to see the others staring at him. He didn't like the eyes that fell on him and he turned his attention back to Zetsu. The man picked up a fork and stabbed his meal to get a chunk off of what he presumed was meat. He placed it in his mouth and found the food to be incredible delicious and ate more. Before another realized it, the food was gone. Zetsu looked at the foxboy. "What is this?" he asked, surprising Naruto by the change of voice. "It is delicious, but we are cannibals." Naruto chuckled nervously again. "Tobi told me how you eat human beings. And there were some in the freezer so I cooked you some," he said. It wasn't easy either. He had a flashback of where he told Tobi to get something that wasn't in the kitchen. The orange-masked man ran off and Naruto went into the freezer and found a human hand. He took it out and defrosted it, but he couldn't get himself to cut it or anything. It freaked him out and went against everything he stood for. Kyuubi tried to get him to do it, but in the end, Naruto let Kyuubi take over and let him cut up the arm until it just looked like normal meat. Then Naruto was able to stomach the seasoning and cooking. It was actually comical, the conversation he had with Kyuubi when doing this. He snapped back to reality. "But I didn't want you to starve either while everyone else ate. That would be mean." Zetsu looked at him in gratitude. No one has ever done something like this nor been this nice to him ever. "Thank you," he replied. "Holy fuck," Zetsu said, "thank you and he liked your cooking," Hidan said, then got smacked by another man who covered his lower face like Kakashi. "Shut it, Hidan. Fuck off, Kakuzu." Everyone went back to eating, including Naruto. He stole a glance to see how Tobi will eat, but the man was already done with his meal, most likely eating it when everyone was distracted with Zetsu. He cursed in his head. He really wanted to see what the man looked like. It was just like with Kakashi. "Why do they have to be mysterious?" "Thanks, it was good," Deidara said. "Agree," Sasori replied. Naruto thanked everyone and luckily Tobi volunteered to help him wash and clean the mess, but was surprised to get help from Zetsu, although he didn't say anything the whole time. Naruto also noticed that there was an empty chair at the table, and if he wasn't there then it would be 2 empty chairs. This let him know there are 2 more members, probably their leader and then another member. But he didn't say anything about it. Afterwards he was led to his room, which again had the marble floor but with rugs and a decent-looking bed, better than the one he had at home. The sheets were black and red, which he figured. There wasn't much to the room: a couch chair, a drawer with most likely clothes, a closet, and a coffee table by his bed with a lamp that lit up the room. He then noticed a conjoined bathroom and decided he wanted a shower. He walked into the bathroom, which was just a normal, simply bathroom, and removed his clothes and stepped into the shower after turning it on. He let the water fall on him and cleansed himself. Today was an interesting day and he learned a lot about the so-called evil Akatsuki. But he didn't forget about Jugo and the rest. He wondered if they were looking for him, if Jugo was upset. For some reason he felt a pang in his heart at that thought. Once he was done cleaning, he turned it off and stepped out, wrapping a towel around him and leaving the bathroom. He looked in the drawers and found some pajamas and put them on. They fit perfectly, which was creepy, but Naruto was too tired to care. He went to the bed and fell asleep, thinking about Jugo. Little did he know that the orange-haired man was hot of his tails, searching high and low for his fox. Jugo, Karen, Suigetsu and Sasuke had to stop their search to get some rest. Although Jugo didn't want to and could continue looking, he knew he had to calm himself down and think rationally. They set up camp by pitching a few tents and starting a campfire so they can have heat, light and something to cook their food. They had lost the trail of Naru and the kidnappers' chakra and scent. Jugo was so upset that they lost it that he destroyed a good section of forest. The others knew better than to get in his way and stayed well away from him. Eventually he calmed down, but not enough to rest like the others. Suigetsu gave Jugo some food but the other didn't touch it. Karen and Suigetsu looked at each other in worry. They have never seen their friend like this before. Not even when Orochimaru was experimenting on him and using him for whatever the snake freak pleased. "Man, I have never seen Jugo like this before," Suigetsu said. Karen nodded. "I know, he must really love that fox demon." "Yay, I mean since the brat first came to us, I noticed a difference between him. He was more under control of his emotions." Agreed, the fox helped him come to terms with what Orochimaru did to him, without even knowing. "I hope we can find him before it's too late. Kami knows what Jugo will do if we don't. Probably kill everyone and go completely insane. I don't want to be near him if that happens." Agreed. Sasuke listened to the two talks about their friend. But he was of course indifferent by Yugo's actions, but inside was more pissed that they lost Itachi's chakra trails. Jugo wasting his energy and getting weak was his problem, not Sasuke. Besides, it may benefit him in the end. He got up and walked away, making Karen and Suigetsu look at him. "Hey, where you going?" Suigetsu asked. "Out," he answered and left. They didn't say anything more. Karen hoped that he will be okay. She knew how much getting Itachi meant to him. Sasuke left the camp out and set off to the nearest village, which turned out to be not that far from where they were. Although they could easily get there and could sleep in normal beds, he didn't want to risk it with Yugo's emotions and if there were spies hiding around. He moved around the village like a shadow, hidden in his disguise for the moment of just a cloak covering him. He was able to get free supplies that they needed by swindling the women in the village. They all fell for his charms, looks and empty promises. He stopped by a little food shop that was the rendezvous for thugs, rouge ninjas, assassins and more to stop by and exchange information, for hire, and if one drinks enough sake, learn secrets. Sasuke sat at a table in the middle of the food shop so he can look and hear all those around him. He listened to some people talk about mundane things and others about secrets that he didn't care about. He was trying to find something specific, something to do with his brother. He knows that Akatsukis have disposable spies that they get so they don't have to get their hands dirty or possibly caught. He had a quick thought of disguising himself as a female to try to seduce men into telling their secrets, but he shook in disgust by the thought. He would never stoop that low. After what seemed to be hours, he finally got what he was waiting for. A man came burst through the doors. "Shopkeeper, give everyone a drink, it's on me," he yelled out, making everyone cheer for the generous offer. The man was tall, about 5 feet 11, and had a moderate body style. Not skinny but not fat. Just well-toned from what can be seen by his clothes, which was a normal black cloak with some ninja equipment such as holsters, shoes etc. He was bald, about early 20s, and had brown eyes with red marks under his eyes almost like eyeliner but much thicker. The shopkeeper, who was an older male with gray hair, a beard and mustache connecting and looked unkempt. He had light wrinkles and a big almost beer-like belly but had muscles on his arms. He looked at the new arrive, unimpressed, and crossed his arms. "Shows the money first," he said. The newcomer grinned and tossed the older man a cloth pouch. The shopkeeper caught it and opened it. He peered inside and saw the money. It was a lot more than enough for one round for everyone in the shop. He tied it back up and looked at the newcomer, nodding his head. "Pleasure doing business." He turned to his kitchen. "Sake for everyone," he yelled out, making more people cheer. Everyone got their sake, including Sasuke, although he doesn't drink anything. He actually sneaked it to someone else's table. It wasn't long before people were getting drunk. "What's the special occasion?" one man asked the newcomer. "I got a high-paying job from a very well-known organization," he replied. "You don't mean?" another asked. He nodded. "Yup, the Akatsukis." Sasuke perked up at the name. It's just what he has been waiting for. He listened as the man blabbed about what he was doing for the Akatsuki and some of the secrets, but they were not much, things people kind of knew or heard about, especially Sasuke. But Sasuke could see that the man was controlling himself from blabbing all the secrets even as he got drunk. As the night went on, the man stayed and gave everyone drinks, but people came and gone. Women who saw that he was practically fiving away money flocked to him to try to get some, which wasn't hard. The shop had to close early because all their alcohol was gone. Most people complained but left except for Sasuke and the newcomer, who was nearly passed out on the ground. The shopkeeper approached the drunken man. "Oi, you drank us out of shop, we have to close early, so get out," he said. The newcomer raised his head. "Barkeeper, another one." The shopkeeper sighed. "We don't have any more." Sasuke took this opportunity and approached them. "Sorry sir, I'll get my friend out," he said, putting on a fake facade. He approached the drunken man and tried to help it up. The man hugged Sasuke. "Another sake, Kai." Sasuke faked laughed. No, you had enough." He put his arm around his waist and helped him up, taking most of the weight. "Thank you sir." "Yay, whatever." Sasuke resisted the urge to roll his eyes and slowly hauled the other away. Now it was time for the real fun, getting the information he needed from this drunken man. After what seems like hours, Sasuke finally got all the information he wanted and needed. It was thought at first because the man was drunk but also had a mental block that someone else has put on the man. But he was an Uchiha and he would get what he wants. It took more time than he thought to break it, but in the end he did. He thought later what Orochimaru had told him about the Akatsuki's members and knows it was the one called Sasori who did it. He heard that he used that technique on Kabuto, but they broke it without the other realizing it. Luckily they told Sasuke how to break it just in case, although he doubts that he would ever get in that situation. He left the man where he was. Any evidence that Sasuke was there was erased, including when he entered the other's mind to extract the information. Although this left the man worse than he was, making him forget entirely who he was and everything that happened to him. But Sasuke didn't care. He wasn't a mind specialist, so mistakes were to happen, and even though he hated making mistakes, this one benefited him, so he was okay with it. By the time he reached the campsite, Karen and Suigetsu were asleep, but Jugo was wide awake, seemingly calmer than before but still on high alert. He disposed of the supplies that he got by his tent and walked to where Jugo was. The orange-haired boy glanced down to see Sasuke had come back, and the other made a gesture to Jugo to come down from the tree branch he was perched on. He jumped down and towered over the black-hair man, but Sasuke's expression remained stoic. "I have good news for you," he said. "In town I found someone that bragged that they got a job working for the Akatsukis." Jugo huffed. "Lots of people do that," he said gruffly. Well, unlike others he turned out to be telling the truth, but he was under strict mind control from Sasori. "But with the jutsu that Orochimaru taught me I was able to break them and get all the information we needed." "Does this mean?" "Yay, I know where their base is, and at their base they will have Itachi and Naru as well. We will leave in the morning, it will take about 2 days to get there. Get some sleep, I don't want you to slow us down." Jugo grinned and nodded, then bowed to his leader. They knew where his fox was and soon they will be reunited. He couldn't wait to snuggle and cuddle the other and protect him forever from those who wanted to take him away. Sasuke went to his tent to prepare and rest while Jugo sat under the tree he was first sitting on and fell asleep, his body still on alert for any danger. Back at Konoha people were freaking out. Well, Suonde, Team Kakashi and Naruto's friends more than anyone. Naruto has been missing for days for a solo mission. They got word that the mission was finished earlier than promised. The client was very happy, but Naruto never returned. Suonde sent Anbu to the drop-off point of the mission and back to see if they could find or detect anything, but they came up empty. Suonde was worried that the Akatsuki somehow got to him. She even sent word to Jiraiya and Gaara to see if they know anything. Jiraiya responded saying he was coming back to the village, and Kakatage Gaara notified that he knew nothing and that he too would send out people to look. He couldn't go himself because of problems going on in the village, although he would love to go since Naruto was like a brother to him now. Suonde was staring off into the distance out her window. Sakura entered and noticed the lack of alcohol lying around. The Hokage must really be worried. Sakura approached her. "We'll find him, Lady Suonde," she said. "I'm not worried about finding him, I'm worried about finding him dead," she answered. Sakura didn't know what to say. She wished she'd gone with him, but he was so persistent to go about it alone, said he needed to do some missions alone so he has practice for when he gets closer to be Hokage. Baka Naruto, you better not die on us, she thought. It was quiet until the doors burst open. Sakura and Suonde turned and looked at who came in, and it was none other than Jiraiya. He had a serious look, meaning something was up. But the first he did was go up to Suonde and hugged her. No groping or lewd talking, just a hug. She hugged back and buried her head into his shoulders but wouldn't let herself shear a tear. No, those are saved when they find out what happened to him, whether good or bad. They stayed like that for a few seconds before departing. He looked her in the eyes, although he didn't say anything, his eyes reassured her. He cleared his throat. I got news of his whereabouts, he said. Alright, I'll get everyone here. Sakura, please gather every available shinobi that are Naruto's friends and get them here now, she commanded. Sakura straightened up and bows, yes my lady, and disappeared out the window to gather everyone. It didn't take long for everyone to get to the Hokage's office. Hinata, Kiba, Kakashi, Sai, Sakura, Yamato, Rock Lee, and Shikamaru all stood, waiting for the Hokage to talk. As all of you know, Naruto went on a mission and completed it, but he has not returned. We have sent out Anbu to see if they can get any information on what happened to him and his whereabouts, but got nothing. But Jiraiya here has some information. She looked at Jiraiya, who stepped forward. I have informants everywhere and was able to get some information on the brat's whereabouts. An informant of mine by the name of Raikou is a double agent for Akatsuki. He made them believe that the member Sasori was controlling him and basically making him into a sleeper agent. Cool, so this guy is going to tell and show us where Naruto is? Kiba asked. Yes and no. I was able to take to him and gather the information, but sadly I got word this morning that he completely lost his memory. He went into a village known to have many bandits, ninjas and spy to stop by, and was trying to get information, but he got drunk and someone tampered with his memory. I'm assuming they knew he had information and tried to get it, but ending up botching the job. He's fine but just doesn't remember anything at all. Doctors say with the amount of damage, he will probably never recover the lost memories. I'm really sorry, Jiraiya, Sakura said. Jiraiya shrugged. The life of a ninja. This only means someone might know what he did, including Naruto's whereabouts. Could it have been the Akatsukis? I doubt it, they didn't do a good job when trying to get the information. Had to be an amateur to mind Judas. The Akatsukis, especially with Sasori's knowledge, wouldn't make that mistake. They are too prideful to even fake doing that. But nonetheless someone might know, so we need to head out fast. He then proceeded to tell them the information that he had about Naruto's whereabouts and who should be there at the time that they need to get him. Once after explaining the plan, Suonde said a few words and dismissed them to prepare and leave, which they did, and left to find their friend, family, and to 3 members of the Riku's team, a love interest. But all thought the same thing as they head out. Naruto, we are coming to save you. 1 day has passed since Naruto has been kidnapped, and although he wasn't allowed to leave and was constantly watched, he still had fun and learned many things from the other members. But there was an incident where one of the members got mad at him. He was hanging out with Zetsu because the strange plant man mentioned he has a garden in their cave lair, and Naruto was interested in how that was possible. Though he also liked plants, but he would never tell anyone. They always calmed him and he enjoyed all the smells. When he followed Zetsu into his garden, he was amazed by what he saw. The garden was huge, at least 50 feet long and 25 feet wide of just plant. Naruto didn't even think the hideout cave was this big to house such a massive garden. There were plants that he knew and others that seemed foreign and ranged from normal flowers, to ferns, vegetables, fruits, fungi and more. There also seemed that some areas of the garden were in plastic-like rooms, and the blonde could see how misty and foggy the room is, and some condensation on the plastic suggesting the plants inside were at a different temperature than the others. He looked up and saw a hole in the ceiling and reflectors around the walls. It looks like the sun would peek into the hole and hit the reflectors and shine sunlight into the entire room, letting all the plants get enough sunshine to live and grow. There were some areas where the sunlight didn't light, but he could see the plants were alive and everything. Zetsu saw Naru with a quizzical look and explained those plants didn't like sunlight that much, so he keeps them in the dark. Zetsu was cool to show his around, talking about the most interesting plants he had. Naruto could tell Zetsu really loved being here. It was like his home. A place where he could get away from the judgment of others and spend time tending to his garden with organisms that were like himself. When he spoke, he was very passionate about the things he would say. Naruto really liked this side of the plant man. He also noticed that in this setting, the light side of Zetsu spoke and the dark side never did, but while out with the rest of the members, both sides took turns speaking. He thought it was strange that Zetsu does this, but chalks it up as maybe he wanted to sound and be creepy by talking that way. But when he is alone, he doesn't have to look and sound tough and scary. As Naruto spent the day helping Zetsu soil the ground and replant some of the plants, he couldn't help but to be drawn to the sweet smells of the flowers. So he followed his nose and started sniffing them, but then a crash startled him and he looked at where the sound was coming from. Zetsu was standing there, a broken pot on the ground and a shocked expression, and suddenly turned angry. He growled at the fox demon. "How dare you?" he yelled. "I trusted you." "What?" Naruto asked, surprised. He didn't know what he did, he just sniffed some flowers. "You violated them. I thought I could trust you with them." He then rushed to the blonde, who was scared out of his mind because he had no idea what was going on. Zetsu grabbed him and shoved him out of the garden room. "Don't ever come back here." And the door disappeared like it was never there. Naruto stood there dumbfounded, not sure what to make of the situation. He didn't know why Zetsu blew up like that and what the hell did he violate. It wasn't long before someone approached him. By the sound of the footsteps, Naruto turned and saw that it was Kisame. Kisame looked at the kid and at the wall where everyone knew the entrance of the garden was, then back at the kid. "He threw you out?" Kisame asked. Naruto nodded. "Did you sniff the flowers?" Once again Naruto nodded. Kisame sighed. "This always happens to everyone that goes in there, although not many have. Out of the members only 5 of them have gone in, excluding himself since he could care less. Out of those 5, 3 of them have been kicked out because of the same reason. Although each one was welcomed back after a while, though Zetsu made sure to torture them and promised to never sniff his flowers again." "Why was that bad? Why did he react like that?" Naruto asked. Kisame sighed again. "It's a plant thing. I guess plants like flowers have their genitals where people would smell them. So Zetsu, of course, knowing that, when he sees others smelling, he sees in as a way of that person violating or molesting the flower. To him it's basically rape and an act of betrayal when someone does that in his garden." "Oh, I understand. Weird, but I understand," Naruto said, thinking over what the shark man said. It made sense from what Zetsu yelled at him. "Well, I'll just tell him I'm sorry and I didn't know." "Unfortunately, kid, that won't work, at least know right away. Zetsu takes a while to forgive even if you didn't know. Give him a few hours to cool down and realize what happened and he'll come to you." Naruto looked down sadly, his ears lowering at the thought. He didn't mean to get Zetsu angry at him. Kisame looked uncomfortable with the situation and patted the fox's head. "It's alright, don't think too much about it. You'll break your mind." He grinned, trying to get a reaction from the blonde, and it worked. Naruto huffed and ducked out of the hand and crossed his arms. Kisame laughed at the scene. "Your personality changed a little from the last time I saw ya. Must be the fox demon in you now, makes you more childish at time but also mature when needed." Naruto's ears perked up. "Really?" Kisame nodded, and soon an uncomfortable silence washed over them. Kisame took this time to look at the other and his new look. He had to admit the brat looked cute with the ears and tail, but also wild and untamed. He blushed at the thoughts that went through his mind and cleared his throat to try to take his mind off it. He noticed all the dirt and grim on the other. "You, want to go a natural hot springs we have here?" he asked. Naruto's face brightened up at the idea and nodded frantically. "Yay, that would be awesome. Alright, follow me." Kisame took the fox to the hot spring that was deep in the lair. The room was steamy and warm, but that of course was normal. "Once you take off your clothes you can jump in," Kisame told him. "I need to wash off and relax too, can I join y'all?" Naruto laughed. "Of course, this place is huge, we can share it." Kisame grinned, showing his sharp pearly white teeth. "Thanks." They shed their clothes, grabbed a towel and some soap and eased their way into the spring. Naruto nearly turned into mush from the effects of the hot spring, it was so relaxing. He looked over to see if he could see the blue-haired man, but the steam in the room was so dense that he could barely see anything. The fox shrugged and let the water soothe him and wash the dirt away. Kisame wasn't far from the fox and could actually see him since his eyes were more developed and he is used to the hot spring's steam. Although he won't say it, he is glad to have another demon-like person around. He doesn't including Zetsu since he is plant-like and the others are all human or once human but not him. He was a shark demon and no matter where he went people seemed to know and were afraid of him. Not that he minded since being with the Akatsukis, you are meant to be feared. But every now and then he gets lonely. Sure he has Itachi and man was the wild and kinky, you wouldn't ever think that Itachi was such a submissive, kinky person because of how he is usually but only Kisame knew of it. And Itachi threatened more times enough that he will dismember the shark's precious jewels if he ever told anyone, of course the shark wouldn't. He likes only knowing this side of Itachi and having him all to himself. But even with Itachi, he wished he had someone else he could relate to, another demon who lives among humans. That knows the pain and hatred they face every day by themselves and shared what they have gone through. No matter what, humans would never understand what that is like. Even those who weren't born demons but had the tailed beast locked inside them know more than anything how it feels. Kisame saw them as actual heroes, protecting everyone from the demons by having the creatures locked inside of them. But the humans, they only see a monster, the demon itself, and directly their hatred onto the innocent holders. Kisame sighed and closed his eyes. Thinking about these things was depressing. But the water was doing a great part relaxing him, washing away all the pain and depression. He could hear the kid playing in the water and cleaning himself from all the grim from Zetsu's room. Luckily this spring get fresh water in all the time so the dirt from them won't stay in here. After a little time had passed the steam started to let up and Naruto was able to see the pale blue man who was right to him. He saw how relaxed the older male was. It was strange to see this since every time he had seen him of course was when they were trying to get him or was fighting. It was nice to see the other in a different light sort of speak. Kisame's hair was now down from the wetness and dampness of the spring. Although it looked long being spiked up, it looked longer when it was wet down. Naruto couldn't help that the other kind of looked handsome like this, not serious or trying to kill him. Kyuubi chuckled in Naruto's head at the thought and said something about demons will always like to be around other demons, it's just how they are. "Ne Kisame-san?" Naruto asked. "Yay?" Kisame answered back. Kyuubi said, "You're a demon, is that right?" Of course the nine-tailed fox would know thought. "Yay, I am. Why? I just wanted to know. So we're like the same now." Kisame opened his eyes and could see the fox smiling at him. Weird kid, he thought. "Ne Kisame-san? What? Why did you join the Akatsuki? Why do you want to know?" Naruto shrugged. "I know why Itachi joined, kind of, and Zetsu, but I want to know why others joined in." Kisame had to think about the reason. No one had ever asked him that before except for Leader Sama. I guess the short answer would be this is the one true place where I belonged. No one judges me for what I am and I can be myself while also be useful. He started out. My mom was a normal human who fell in love with a demon. My mother told me that while she was pregnant, my father protected her from ninjas who thought she was taken over by him. They sought to relieve her of his hold and bring her back to the good side. No one knew she was pregnant but my father and her. He went on to tell the fox how his mother secluded herself from others who would kill her unborn child if they found out, knowing it had to be the demons. How she was killed from the mist ninjas who found out her secret, about him when he was only 3 years old. How, instead of killing him, raised him to become a weapon for the village and trained him to be an assassin to be feared. He talked about how he hated how he was treated and looked down by everyone and his insecurities of his appearance. He really does have insecurities about his appearance, poor Kisame. He became a spy, kill people, everything they told him for his village just so they would notice him and treat him like an actual person, to gain their favor and approval. Then realized that would never happen when they made him kill the wrong person and turn on him, hunted by his own village. Eventually on the run, the leader of the Akatsuki found him, offering salvation with no judgment of what or who he was and telling him what happened to his mother and father that he didn't know. And vowing to help the leader obtain his dream, no matter what the cost would be.
That's all for now. If you enjoy this video, then please like, share and do comments.